Okay, as we get ready to prep, we've got some interesting prep this week, or this episode of Toll TV. We've got porcelain eggs. I thought we'd do an Easter project. Easter's real late this year, so you'll have plenty of time to get yours painted. And I thought what I would do, so I've got porcelain eggs and I've got this tin little basket. And I love the shape of this. It's got a good deep handle. It's got really pretty lines. But what I thought I wanted to do is maybe make something, I think that this would be really cute as like a centerpiece for your table. But I didn't want to necessarily put it away after Easter. So I thought what I would do is paint some rosebuds on the basket and then put some little eggs in it for right now. And then hang on, I'll go grab something else and I'll show you where I'm going. Okay, so then after I'm done displaying my Easter eggs, then I could put it in with some potpourri, put a candle in there, and keep it on the table. At our house, my husband had that little bit of heart stuff going on in December, and now we've become a table of interesting things like salt-free substitutes and different things like that. It's kind of becoming quite a collection. This might be a nice basket for me to put those items in, and I can move it when I don't want all that stuff sitting on the table. I've been looking for something that would fit that bill, and this might be perfect. So this will carry me through about half of the year, and I've got one started for the fall part of the year. But I thought that this would be kind of a unique surface to kind of play around with. So what I'm going to do is start with the prep. So first, you move these guys out of the way. I love these porcelain eggs. One thing, just to let you know about them, I did a little thing about how to paint them, how to prep them. They come with a little wooden stand. So just really nice if you want to just do an egg and put it up on your counter or up on your bookshelf and things like that. They have a flat bottom so that they are sturdy. They're very, very strong. This is a matte finish, which is, gosh, somebody sent me an email and I'm trying to think of what she called it, vitreous, and that means it's like it doesn't absorb water. I think that's the word. Anyway, the flat bottom, I couldn't decide if I liked that or not, but when you're putting this egg inside your basket or you're putting it on a stand, the flat bottom is definitely a really big plus. So I think that this is a good alternative to real goose eggs, which are much more fragile. You could also paint wooden eggs, which then the prep would be a little bit different. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is prime. So I'm going to open up a new bottle of paint adhesion medium. And paint adhesion medium is going to stick to just like stinking everything, candles, and obviously you'd want to be careful about flames and paint and stuff like that. But if you want to paint on something waxy, soapy, tin, plastic, fantastic stuff. It is the little miracle drug. We sell hundreds and hundreds of bottles of it. Love it. You're going to need in this particular case, I've got so many grooves on here. I could roll this, but I think I'm going to be happier with my big oval fluffy brush. It's a 1-inch brush. It's cut like an oval glaze, so it's tapered this way and it's tapered around this way, which means that it's not going to leave a bunch of flat streak marks everywhere. These brushes get super big. This is the one that I use when I'm painting my house to trim up around the like around the windows and things like that. It's just a fantastic brush, and it's way cheaper than going and buying those expensive ones. Look how big that brush gets. I mean, it just gets mondo big. It is my favorite. It is the biggest size on the website. It's the biggest size one in my favorite dry brush because it is actually cut the same exact way. It's just a huge one. Okay, so then you're just going to put on an even coat. You're going to make sure that you get the little edges and creases. Brush it thin. Thicker is not better. People always seem to think that, like if you can't understand the language, you start yelling. That just isn't a good thing to do. So the same thing with paint and mediums. If you're frustrated or you're not sure, go with a little bit before you jump right in, Anyway, just nice even coat, and then allow it to cure. And then always do a scratch test. And I get such fantastic feedback for telling you everything, and then I've gone and barged right into this without telling you everything. So let me stop and tell you some things I know about this surface. I'll flip it over to the other side. I'm going to rub on this. Can you hear that sound? Let me get you something else to listen to. Well, that won't work. We'll do the glass ornament here. The rougher the sound, that generally means, and I'm letting you use your ears because you can't feel it here, that means that there's a little bit of tooth. If it was like slick, then it wouldn't have that tooth sound. And you can feel it with your fingers as well. On the inside and the outside, it's got a really good matte finish. If it was not a really good matte finish, or if it was anything like galvanized, which is the silver metal that has, like you get for flower buckets. If you got galvanized, then you'll put it in hot soapy water, you'll scrub it really well, and then you'll do a vinegar water bath, like 50% of each, and then just that acid in the vinegar will etch the surface, allowing things to stick to it. This, I'm not going to have the problem because it's baked right on, it's already pre-primed, it's fantastic. If you were doing an old piece of metal, totally hot soapy water wash it, and then make sure you get all the grease and grime off. If it's shiny at all, then you want to get out your sanding discs. We carry 2 on the website because that's about just what you need. And one side is really strong grit, and the other side is less, or finer, and then finest. And then it's a stuff called superfilm for the finest sanding. That's the finish sanding. So you could just give it a little scratch, and you don't want to, like, you know, you're not trying to sand the color off, you're just trying to give it a scratch. That's going to allow this medium to stick. So whenever you have a little bit of shine, if this was plastic, I would definitely wash it and then dry it and then give it a little sand. Okay, so that being said, I think you know more than you did when I started on the other side. If you were painting something that had rust on it, then the rust is a living organism, and so you want to be really careful with that. You want it to go away. So what you do to get rust to go away is you use like navel jelly, which I don't know why they call it navel jelly, but it's available in hardware stores, and follow those manufacturer instructions. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I get my little rim here and the bottom, and then I'm going to allow it to dry. I would allow it to dry probably, like, you just want to make sure it's really good and dry. Sometimes you can put it in the low oven, like 200 degrees, get it up to 200, turn it off, and then come back to it, you know, once it's cool. If you want to force it a little bit faster. Don't go too high with that stuff, and sometimes they stink, so like be careful. Your health is more valuable than anything, so it just depends on the products. Okay, get this all done and I'll check back with you. Alright, I've got my palette picked out for my rosebuds. It's a palette that I've used many, many times. And so then when I was going to choose the color for my eggs, you need to make sure that things are going to go together. So I've already got this I knew what I wanted to do here. But how do I go from here? This is just for those of you who are curious about the process. I have made myself a book. Many of you have heard me go on and on about this, but I think it's cool. And it works, and I use it like every time I do anything. I made old business card or just white paper cards of all the paint chips. I just hand painted them. If you don't own all the paints, get together with a buddy and have a painting party. You just cut these on the paper cutter, and they curl when they are drying. You just lay them out flat, and by the end of the drying time, they flatten back out. And then you put the color number and the name of it, and then like this one I mixed it with white and black to see what it would become. And interesting enough, if you have True Red, you can make most of the colors on these cards. So really, if you find your pure pigment colors, you can find the ones that are the base for all the line of Decor, Delta, Josonia, all of them. Okay, anyway, so what I did was I knew that I had, say, raspberry, and I had pink chiffon in the rose palette that I was going to use. So I've organized them by color family, and so what I did is that when I got to the pink chiffon page, I looked for something in the value. I don't want it as bright, fluffy, white colored as the pink chiffon, and I didn't want it as dark as the raspberry because that's not very Eastery. And so I looked on these pages and I found a nice medium value in the French mauve. And then I did the same thing with the leaf green that I'm using, avocado. I flipped back to my leaf colors, and then, okay, so I've got avocado, and in the yellow-green color family here, I could have gone soft sage, and I'm not too certain that I might not want to. I chose celery at first, but let me show you how these all work together. These are the 3 colors that I have. If you squint your eyes at the screen that you're looking at right now, you're going to see that you're picking up on the celery green the most. It's the darkest. Or this is the lightest. If I moved into a darker yellow, then maybe we have a little more balance. But I think then this yellow becomes obnoxious. And this is the egg that I had painted to show you guys how to paint. I did it on a separate video. But I like this color, so instead of repainting it, I'm going to go ahead and use it. But this is done with sand. So I like how the yellow turned out. I like the value, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to use this, and I want to work it into these. So now what I'll do is I'll go pull soft sage, and we'll see if soft sage sits better with these colors. Okay, so that's the soft sage. That's the celery green. You can see that soft sage is sitting pretty good, but it's kind of almost blending with my sand color. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the soft sage, and then if it starts when it dries, when the very first part that I do dries, if it looks too similar to the sand color, I think I'll go ahead and either maybe mix it or, you know, because you can always just cut the difference between those by mixing them together. But I try not to make mixes unless if I don't have to, because I know it's aggravating for people. But I think that these are going to be good, soft, Eastery colors. So I'm really excited to get started. All right, now I've popped this little goodie out on you twice already in this beginning. This is a pop top, and it pops open the top of your paint bottle thing, and I've painted this with a little blue Delft design. I don't know if it's like $3 or if you get it with the packet, but it's so darn cute and it's so handy. And I can't tell you how many times I've almost made my thumb bleed. We're going to base our tin with cool neutral. Whoops. Strings and plastic. Oh my. Okay. We'll find our brush. Now this is where, depending on how you feel about your prep, this is where you can do a little sneak trick. Take a little of your paint adhesion medium in your first coat of paint, only in the first one, and mix it in. I'm mixing with my brush. You can mix with a palette knife, since I'm going to load it on this anyway. And you just go ahead, and isn't that funny? It's almost exactly the same color as the tin itself. You want to use nice thin, watch these little corners where things can collect. Nice thin coats. Allow it to dry thoroughly. So I'm doing this first because this is going to be the time sucker. This one's going to take the most time to dry. It's going to take the most coats. Like I said, I get out my 2-inch roller in a heartbeat, but this isn't the right size for that, so I'm just going to have to suck it up and use the old-fashioned way. You know what? Hang on. Maybe we've got a better way. I'm not thinking. Alright, I'm going to get my nitro glove on. This is a chemical-proof little disposable glove. I use them over and over every time I'm going to get my hands in sponges, basically. The varnish sponge, the mighty varnish sponge, is, or maybe the lowly varnish sponge. You can use it wet or dry. You squeeze it out. If you want to varnish with it, you can varnish, or you could base coat. Now watch this. I've got this one's dry. Got my hand protected. I hate to have paint and crap on my hands. I know it's kind of shameful, but now with this, because it's not rolling and then it's not got those ridges and heads and things on it, then what I can do is just wipe that on. Ta-da! Much faster. Like, I love that other brush. It's my friend, but I don't want to be at this for 100 years. I can hear my son Joe laughing on the other end of the video because I just sounded like I came from Southeast Ohio. It's my friend. And no, I'm not knocking anybody with an accent. Just kind of funny. Alright, look at that. Now I can hold this sponge by putting it in a plastic baggie. This is going to dry way faster because this applies paint so much lighter than your brush. And it doesn't leave all the brush marks and things like that. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm glad I thought of it. Well, I didn't embed it or anything, but I'm glad I remembered. Okay, now I'll just pop this into a plastic bag. Paint dries when it has contact with air. So if we rob it of its contact with air, then that paint will stay fresh on there for a little while until this dries and I can go and do my other coat. Okay, our new best friends, and you can say it however you want to, are going to be these makeup applicators. Mine came from good old Kroger. They're in the makeup section of the store. They have them at Walmart. Sometimes maybe the cheaper they are, the flimsier they are. So you spend a little bit of money for them. I think I spent a whole walloping $1.92 or something like that for mine. But they've got a nice density to them. They sell them. They sell them as art materials and things like that, and I know why they do that, because people ask for them because they don't know where to find them, or they don't live near stores that stock things like this. But much, much cheaper if you get them from like the grocery store. All right, so we're gonna move over and get started prepping. We're gonna have everything kind of flying around at the same time here. I already prepped this one, but I want to show you how. This is a craft lathe. It has these lovely removable little doohickeys that are in there. Okay. They just go popping right on in. You can get replacements of these. If you saw how they were stuck to either end, that happened to me, and then I carted my piece around my studio, and then my dog chewed on it. So order a set or two of replacements when you order your craft lathe, unless you are so perfect. Well, you know what I mean. All right, so we're just going to pull this apart. This unlocks, and I always over tighten mine, so try not to over tighten. And then it just slides on these rails, and it can be quite long. You can go all the way down to the end, and then it just screws tight, and that locks it in place. These little things have holes in them, and that is wonderful for when you have like an ornament and you want to put your ornament in there. And I was sharing that I thought it was the funniest thing that I'm actually painting eggs with the craft lathe, because when I saw the first ad, for 20 years I've only seen ads for the craft lathe, and all they had in it was an egg. And you can do wine glasses. I've got a new device I'll show you in just a minute. You can do wine glasses, flower pots, spindles, you name it, you can do it. Okay, so I'm going to make this nice and tight, and then tighten it down. I don't want my egg falling out. Okay, so we're going to get out our pink. We'll start with our French mauve. And because this is waterproof and all that, you don't need to do any sealing. It's got a nice paintable finish. Just go right on top of it. Put out some of that. And then you've got to attack this thing a little bit in sections. So we're going to go into our paint and then tap over on our palette to make it flat. These sponges, the reason these are so fantastic is they're non-porous. They don't like suck up like a cello sponge sucks lots of moisture in. These guys just contain or hold it on its surface or something like that. It doesn't really seep in. Okay, and they're just makeup applicators. Anyway, so we're just going to hold it back here and just apply. You just tap, 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 little taps. And if you get a whole bunch of pebbly surface on there, just keep tapping, and the pebbly things will get smaller. And then be careful, because as it dries, this dries really quickly, which is kind of surprising. You'd think it's like glass and it's going to take forever. But this puppy just dries real fast. Try not to make a line, so we want to go and make a irregular line, if you will, so that we don't have something that we need to clean up later. And we can sand these. I thought that I have just a little bit. Yeah, I guess I'm okay. It definitely feels like an egg, actually. It doesn't feel real pebbly like an egg, like a ostrich egg or anything, but it has an egg feel. It's kind of neat. Okay, so just get that all nice and tapped. What I love about this is see how I'm spinning this with one hand and painting with the other. It is your third set of hands. I can't believe I was such a disbeliever for so many years. You can mount this onto a work table, and you can cut it in half, and you can lengthen it out if you're going to work on, like, remember when, I think it was Ginger Edwards was doing those like finial angels? Well, you could mount it to a board, make it really long, and then you'd have a really, really long one of these. I thought that was a great idea. And then they have little marking lines on here that you can line up. Mine is wet, so I'm not going to do this right now, but got little marks. And then you can wrap. Let's get mine out. I'm so excited, can you tell? It's pretty sad how excited I get about this stuff. All right, let me find my ruler. Okay, so you can take the flexible see-through ruler, which is really, really, really flexible. It's measures from the middle, so it has a 0 here and goes that way. It measures from 1 to 6, and it does, I guess it's just side to side, but with the grid as well, it's very handy. Okay, so what you can do is you can get out your Sharpie. Of course, do this when you don't have a project in your piece. And you can just bend this along here, and you can give yourself measurements. Okay, as soon as you get it steady, I can put a mark there. Yeah, as soon as I get my Sharpie started. So there's a little raised ridge right there I'm lining up with. Oh, for goodness sakes. There we go. So now that's a 1/4 inch, right? So I can go around this whole thing and make 1/4 inch marks. I could make double wide ones for 1/2 inch. You could make whatever code or key you wanted to. You could make annotations down there. You can use alcohol, I believe, is what will take the Sharpie marker off. So you can start all over again if you don't like what you've done. Okay, so then I'm going to take it back out. It's still a little chilly, so I'll show you the piece that I told you about. I'm going to show you. The only thing I do wish is that the screw wasn't so in this little wedgy thing. It would be nicer to have that be just about an inch bigger. So this is our new invention that we came up with. You put this, we left a hole in it. It's the size of this base, and you can put, I don't have a wine glass sitting here, but you can put your wine glass put against there and the base against there, and now that's made into a much longer neck, or a much wider holding place with something like, you know, that has that thing in it. And it'll still spin. That was what the trick was. And you use this bar mat stuff, that's that grippy stuff. This is the Artist Buddy. It's just, you buy it at Walmart or Kmart or wherever in the kitchen supply section. And you just cut a piece to fit your disc, and then you've got a customized disc that you can use and do much larger items for it. These are made out of steel, so galvanized, or not galvanized, but steel. I don't know if paint adhesion medium will prevent. I'm assuming if it seals, then we should be okay. So I'm just going to take some paint adhesion medium right now, right while I've got it in my hot little hands, and I'm going to coat both sides. And what that's going to do for me is it's just going to create a stable surface. And you know what just occurred to me? And I feel like a dork. And it totally just occurred to me. So you guys get to be the first to hear. We just ordered these things in, and you could use a CD or a disc. I don't know if it's big enough. Maybe it's too big. Maybe that's why we did it. I'm sitting here thinking, what a waste. Okay, so get that so there's no yucky ridges. You could paint this if you wanted to. Make it your own customized thing. Lean that over there. Let me get a disc. Oh, here. Okay, maybe that's why. These are the ones that we're making into clocks, and yeah, it's too big. So that is what the problem was. So I guess we weren't so goofy after all when we got all excited about ordering these discs. Now I could put this in the disc sideways to be able to do this, and I guess it would make sense because then I can do them both at one time. Okay. You want to make sure you're dry when you're doing this. And do that turns. Okay, good. And then I'll just get a nice even coat going on here. What I love is I can leave it right in there and allow it to dry. Wouldn't it be awesome to create, you know how we always make Christmas ornaments for our grandkids and stuff. Wouldn't it be neat if each of your grandkids had an Easter egg that was lace and beautiful and theirs, you know, with a pretty display? I think that might be kind of neat. You know, your little tabletop basket could be, you know, Grandma's Easter basket, and you could have little eggs for everybody. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to give the middle another little base, and then I'll flip it later when it dries. If you see any high ridges, once again you can sand, but do be careful. It's easier to avoid the mistakes than it is to go back and have to fix them. Alright. Okay, it's time for coat number 2 on our little tin here. And now I have put paint adhesion medium. This is dry. If I put paint back on here, it's going to reactivate this paint and it is going to make a mess. And it'll make those little boogers, you know, the little dried up things. We don't want that. So we'll just get rid of that. Get back out our cool neutral. Get back out our sponge. And go for another coat. You can watch all the episodes now of this Toll TV all at one time. So if base coat and prep and information like that doesn't excite you, then please, you know, go ahead and click on the other ones. And that scrolly bar that goes along the bottom of the screen, that's a real nice feature too, because you can skip ahead to the next part. So I'll just go ahead and get coat number 2. I could actually use this probably and pounce on my color on my eggs, but I think it might get a little bit awkward. Okay, so I'm wrong. It's supposed to be shale green. And yeah. Anyway, so won't take me any time at all. I'm just gonna let that mix on my palette. Man, that's totally wet. We'll go here first. And then I'll just put that color right over the top. That's just a little prettier. The other's very, very neutral. See what the difference is. You can barely tell it, but it's just got a more, I don't know, it's prettier. That's all that matters. Okay. I wanted to talk to you about the nitro glove for just a second. I have a mild latex allergy myself, and these gloves don't have latex in them, which is fantastic. But when you're staining, I don't know if you've ever stained using like a Minwax product, which is like whatever it's made out of is what I'm talking about. I'm not dogging Minwax. But if you've ever used regular like latex gloves and you dip your hands in the stain and then you wipe it on your wood piece and stuff like that, pretty soon your fingers, it eats the plastic and your fingers fall off of the gloves. And like that's not good to have your hands in that stuff, or there'll be a hole, and it depends on how fast you get in and out of there. These don't do that. They are like a chemical proof kind of glove. They're real safe. And I think I've used this one probably for maybe 6-8 months or something like that. I highly recommend getting a pair. And then when you have messy stuff, you can just, you know, put your hand right on in. And I just crumple them up to store, you know, and shove them in my paint bag or whatever. So it's a good thing to have on hand. As I have eggs in various stages of drying, I'm noticing that I'm going to need to buy myself another glove blade, because what's going to happen is when I'm painting my lace on there, I'm going to want it held while my lace is drying, and then I'm going to want to go to the next egg, and I think it's just going to take a little too long for the drying process, but I'm not going to want to touch it. That's when all the accidents happen. So totally not saying that to say, yeah, hey, you know, you need another lathe, but I just realized I am going to absolutely need another lathe, because I move too quickly. You know, I have wheels on my brain or something, I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, this waiting for something to dry and then moving to the next one after it dries and then swapping them out, and probably a 2-lathe process. And depending on how much, you know, there's a story, a lady named Mary emailed me a story about how she's taken the lace and she has got contracts with stores and all kinds of things, and is paying her medical insurance, and she's like in remission lupus sufferers, so her insurance is super important to her. She lost everything in a divorce and then had to self-support, and painting lace on ornaments is what's supporting her, and that was just absolutely an amazing story. She gives stuff to charity. I mean, she does all kinds of stuff. A really, really amazing lady. So, you know, lace can change your life, and when you get to the point where you're making a whole bunch of things, having multiple tools is a real handy thing. Alright, so I've got green. I think I'm going to like the green. I've got green, pink, and yellow. I think, aren't those so cute? I'm really excited. So I think for my initial inside color, because I can't obviously leave it black, I'm going to take avocado, and that's very stuck. And let's see, we'll find a spot on this piece of palette paper. See how green that is? It's very, 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 very green. And it's a little bit dark. So what I want to do is I want to take avocado, the green that I did on the outside, which is shale, and mix the two of those. And I want to put a touch of burnt umber. Oh, goodness. In them. These little goober things are what make paint bottles stick like that, although I don't know what initially makes them stick, but that is why they stick. So if you can control that. Alright, this time, because I've got chips of stuff everywhere, I'm going to use my palette knife. When you're using a palette knife, you want an offset angle palette knife, because if you have a flat palette knife and you try to go over a lump of paint like this one right here, you will be right in it, and then you'll make a big mess on your hands and everything else. So I just want to make a kind of a lightish, muddyish green-ish. Something neutral, something nondescript, something that isn't going to steal our attention. When your gloves get with the fingers in like that, just blow and they'll pop out. Okay, I'll use the same muddy sponge that I'm already using, and I'll just pick it up dirty, and it won't matter because by the time I get to my second coat it'll be not a problem. Put your coats on very thin and work on these creases. There's all these little like places where things are folded and everything. You want to really push. That's what's nice about a sponge, is you can really push to get in those cracks and creases. Okay, and lay it this way. The more interesting a piece is, the more interesting it is, and that makes it nicer to look at. It also just makes it just a little bit more work. But I love this piece. I think it's so cute. So it's well worth taking a couple extra minutes on your prep, because painting it won't take any longer than any other surface. Just the prep. But how nice to have this little dishy container versus something that would be maybe just kind of like, yeah, alright. The next step will be easiest if you trust me. And I know that's always a really hard thing to do, especially when I use an F word like freehand. Okay, I'm going to use this Ghostwriter that is a triple threat Ghostwriter. Has a gray lead, a rollerball stylus so that you don't leave, it glides when you're tracing. Has a padded handle, and it has a white lead, and they're ceramic leads. They're a strange size, so you can't make them fit in mechanical pencils, which is unfortunate because I tried it. Anyway, fantastic tool. Everybody needs one because sometimes you need white lead, sometimes you need gray lead, and before it was yellow that we were using. That's been discontinued only because the price went up by double, and I didn't want to do that to everybody. But white doesn't leave a stain at all. So white is wonderful. And because they're ceramic leads and not graphite leads, they don't smear and smudge and do that kind of thing. And you can get them off with your eraser, spit, varnish, whatever medium you want to use. But what we need to do is we want to put some vines around this. I think it'd be really cute to have little rosebuddy vines. I think I want to use this area and make a little diamond border there, and maybe even do a border. So I'm not going to do anything in here. I want the vines to be up here. So what we need to do is decide how to vine. Now, there's a lot of reasons people don't vine very well. I'm not even sure how to describe them all, but there's a lot of things. People think they should be jaggedy. People think, yeah, there you go, that they should be curly. And actually, vines can be anything you want. So, like, I'm not trying to judge. But if you have a problem vining, usually it's because you're not drawing them on and then painting them. Okay, that's what I've seen. If you trace it on, you can kind of look at it and go, oh, that looks kind of weird. But if your arm has a rhythm like this when you're painting, then you might get all the way around or halfway around and realize, crud, I don't like what I'm doing, but you don't have any way of fixing it all. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make our lead a little bit, whoops, not that way. Click, click, click. Make our lead a little bit longer. Hold it back in our hand just a little bit. And then I'm just going to kind of meander. Now this would be a really good place to bring out maybe another something or another because it gets heavier and thicker. So if you can see that, let's get you in a little closer. Use the light or the dark, whichever lead makes you happy. Okay, hopefully you can see that I'm having a hard time. Yeah, there it is. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and we'll just keep, this is where we'll bring in a cross vine. And they don't always, you know, you don't want eights everywhere, you know, little figure eights. But I'm not afraid of jerkies. I want it to kind of dance around. Okay, I got a little goober thing right there. If I couldn't get it off that way, what I would do is go ahead and sand it off. I also don't want it to, you know, be straight. Straight wouldn't be very interesting. Now what I do is I go off of my vines. Sorry. Go off my vines and then I come out with other areas of interest that I want to pull. Whenever I see a high spot or another spot, then I bring that down. Now those will trail into this area right down here, so I kind of have a decision to make. Do I want to vine first or do I want to decide on my border first? And that's a tricky question, and the reason that's tricky is because whatever the weight of this design up here is, what might determine this down here. So like I may not know if that needs to be pink or yellow until I see how much pink and yellow I have up here. So then I would have to go back down and re-drag out some vines. And I think for my purposes here, I don't know the answer to that, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to vine first, and then I'll retrace out. I'll put some vines hanging over into my little area down here afterwards. I had taken a break and was going to do my last coat of my green egg and came back and I had wet, sort of viable paint here. Let's get you in the camera. And went in there and all the skin sucked onto my sponge and left 8,000 ridges all over my egg. I just wiped it off with a paper towel and just dealt with it. And so now I'll go into a fresh pile of paint. That didn't like that one stinking bit. And I'm getting a little bit of residual because my sponge was the sponge that I had used. And I mean, really getting a lot of residual. So I'm going to wipe that off. Isn't it so nice to know that we all do goofy things? All right, fresh sponge, no residual stuff. Let's just wipe off anything left over, and that's better. Yeah, so note to self, on eggs, when you're tapping, you can't use slightly almost past expiration date paint. Alright, now I'm left with, I've got 3 very lightweight coats of my green on here. I'm left with a slightly heavy and kind of icky varnish sponge. I'm just going to go into the sink under cold running water and just squish, 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 squish until I think I've got it all out. And when it runs clear, then you should be good. Rinse it out, allow it to dry, and that's how you use this sponge. I just want to show you that one of where I'm going with this is this layered kind of an effect. We're ultimately going to end, not so many big roses because our space is limited and confined, but we're going to start with our vines. Then we're going to put leaves and do some dry rubbing. Then we're going to add a couple of loose flowers, some rose beds, some roses. This is how you make a step-by-step worksheet. I've painted everything broken out. This is available online if you need something to practice on top of and to see like what's actually going on. So first thing we're going to do is get out our sable brown, which is going to be our leaf. I haven't used sable brown probably since I painted that worksheet. So I think I'm going to have some work out here and have to shake my paint pretty well. Let's just take a look at that, actually. When we say stuff like that, you know, speaking like a teacher here, when I put my paint out like this, let's get you in close. Like, this is the kind of stuff, these are the little things that you need to know to be able to really become a better painter. So, if you look here, over on this side right here, oh, and I didn't wipe out my palette knife. Rah, rah, rah. Darn. Always wipe out your palette knife, otherwise you end up with an ever-growing palette knife. So here you go. You've got this oil or this whatever the medium is that the pigment is suspended in. That is a no-no. If you see that or a really flat pile of paint, that's not good. So let me shake this up and I'll come right back. All right, I've shaken up. And then that's my new, whoops, hello, sorry. And that's my new puddle of paint. Notice a big difference in the consistency. You always want to paint with perky, tall paint. If it's flat, you don't want that. You want to shake it up some more. And you want to pay attention to that because all the pigment's there. Like, you're not painting with real paint if you don't, you know, pay attention to that piece of information. All right, the brush that I'm going to use is the Raphael. And the reason I want the Raphael is because when we get ready to paint skinny, fat, skinny, fat, skinny, fat, and make a whole lot of lines and things like that, we want a brush that'll hold its weight. But I want to share, I had somebody return this brush. This looks like a pathetic example of a paintbrush. This is handcrafted, one of the finest tools in the painting community, absolutely one of the very finest. It looks like garbage. And that is how it comes. Like, they actually have it a little bit more formed. This is mine that's been dry in the paintbrush. This is a, used to be a bird quill ferrule. They used to sell these without handles. You glue them under your own handle. They've been made for hundreds of years by the same hand-chosen artisans. They're made out of a Kolinsky quill sable brush, and all of the hairs are laid out to lie in the same direction, so all the follicles are going in the same direction. They're hand cut. Now, that being said, when I get it wet, and it takes just a second, just like your normal hair, it takes just a little bit for it to get wet and have the water saturate the hair follicles. So what I like to do is I like to get the brush wet, and then in this lovely brush basin, which is currently back ordered, but they will be back. I have strong hope. Okay, what I like to do then is I like to rest it with water in the brush and just let it sit there for like a couple minutes. That tames everything down. It fully saturates the hairs, and then it's really ready to perform. Okay, this is, let me see if I can get closer. I'm going to knock all my eggs off my bench here. When you get all these things going at once, it gets a little crowded. Okay, I haven't touched it. I haven't reblended it. Look at how much different that brush looks now. Okay, now that's what it does. That's what it's supposed to do. I'm going to take some water and I'm going to work that all the way up to the ferrule. I never use cleaner on this brush. I never really use soap. These brushes will last you 30 years. And they make the finest lace painting you'll ever want to see. In this case, I don't want them to do lace painting. I want them to do vining, which is going to be that thick, thin. All of those. Look at how sleek. Let's see if we can get you close. It's like seeing is believing, really. Look at how sleek that is. Look at the fine point on the nose of that. It's not a different brush, I swear. Okay. So, now we've got our brush fully saturated in the paint. I'm working it in there. I'm not twisting and doing all kinds of stuff. I'm just working it into the brush. I'm working the water into the brush as well. Okay. Now we'll get rid of that. Come over here in our piece. Widen out just a little bit. Now this is going to be one of those fun pieces where you guys get to go like, what are you doing? Because it's going to be wonky here and there. It's an awkward piece to paint. I really ought to learn better, huh? Okay, so brush is upright. I'm going to have some push. I'm going to have some lift. And then every now and again, I'm going to twist my thumb across it, and that's going to make it wiggle. I'm going to pull out things. Oh, nice car, huh? I'll pull things out of what seem like natural positions. I'm going to ignore my lines. Like, I know I've made you put them there, but I'm going to use them as a guide, a suggestion. Okay, and we'll just wind our way around making these lovely little vines. I think vines are classic. I cannot see over the back end of this thing. I need to get a better angle. Okay, hang on. For these purposes, the Artist Buddy might be better for me just because it is something to lean across, and then I can actually see what I'm doing here. Okay. So, see if you can see. Let me lower this down. So to make it look nice and natural, if nothing else, huh? Okay. So I usually bring other little vine bits off of a joint or a knob maybe even. That's where I decide. Those are invitations to me to vine. I am painting this over the back end of this so that the camera is in front. And by the way, for those of you who wonder about camera placement in all these videos, it says high up and it's right in front and over the top. And the reason for that is, the reason you get upside down videos is distortion is a really horrible thing. And if you flipped the video over, if I filmed it with it behind me or over me, you get a great look at the top of my head half the time, which is not very appealing on most days, so we don't want that. And then B, if we flip it, then the distortion because of the angle of the camera. So until we become master photographers, that's what we get right now. So I'm twisting, I'm lifting. I love these little cha-cha-cha jerky things that happen. If I don't like something, I can wipe it back. I don't want to hurry this. A lot of times what I see, and I'll give you my imitation, and I'm not knocking it, I'm just saying, you guys, those are the ones that come to me and say, oh, I hate this. They'll do this. And then they'll you know, do some stuff. And that's not vining. That's lining, and that's nice. Vining is, you know, nature. It's going to grow and stop and start. And where does that come out of there? You know, vining is different. Vining has, you know, growth spells and cold seasons and all that kind of stuff. Not lining. So make sure that you take some time with your vining so it doesn't look like lining. Okay. Get ourselves all the way around here. Be careful that you don't become a more loose viner as you make your way around. I started right in the middle. I'm not certain that there's a good spot to begin or end. Now that's my brush, still looks like a pristine little wonderfulness. Let me show you the brush. I should do it on a piece of paper. This is one of those, this is the brush, and let me load it right. Got to have it fully loaded, juiced up. Try my ferrule. Okay, fully loaded, it's got a fat little belly. This is the thing that will just keep going and going and going and going and going and going. And you can't believe when you see the brush, when you get it in the mail, we ship it in a cardboard box, in a bag, with padding, all kinds of protection, because, you know, it's a $30 brush. But it is phenomenal performer. I don't recommend this brush if you're a beginner, because a beginner will think that they got gypped because a beginner doesn't know how to control their brush. So if you need the brush, call and ask Annette to include the how to do line work as well video, because that way you can learn how to use the brush and not be disappointed in the brush. Right, next we have to decide where the crossovers are going to be. Okay, and in my mind, that's a good spot. If we don't cross over, it won't look especially viney. And it doesn't have to cross and vine everywhere together. Like, we don't want it to look like a whole bunch of things just, you know, like you stick your fingers together and make, the crisscross thing with a pattern. No pattern is probably what I'm saying more than anything. They could stop and end and be hanging vines or hanging crossing vines. Okay. These are what I call deep vines right here. Very, very, very strong hills and valleys. I would advise maybe being a little bit cautious of them and not crossing them everywhere. I'm not real super pleased that I put so many deep ones there. But as I come along to this side, I'm really happy with that. That's not bad, but see how that looks just a little bit more like, we'll put a big fat rose there. Okay, apparently I did the same on both ends. At least I'm consistent. Okay, so that's that step. Next we're going to get out our burnt umber and we're going to shade. We're going to use, believe it or not, we're going to shade across where things overlap each other. Oops, I'm showing me, not you, sorry. We're going to shade where the vines overlap, and we're going to use a number 12 angle shader to do that. And I know a lot of you will be like, oh, well, we can't use a big brush to shade a little spot, but let me show you why we do this. First, I'll show you how to load an angle shader. You want to load the paint, the water, just like you would a flat. Then you put the paint on the toe. And then instead of doing big, long stripes like this, okay, that's not necessary. Go get a little bit more water. What you're going to do is load the toe, and you'll go chop, 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 chop. It's like one angle and the other angle. What this prevents is a lot of loss of water and paint on this big striping thing. Okay, just a real nice small movement. It's less than a half an inch. I can put a little bit more paint on my brush if I feel like I've worn it out or not put enough in. Now if I get back that piece of paper and show you, what we're going to do is we're just simply going to lay this across. We just want to make little shade lines and see how beautiful that is. We don't have to do, if we used a tiny brush, we'd have to go chop, 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 and really drag it out. Okay, this way we make one swipe. It's perfect. All right, now we have to decide where to put them. All right, let me get this thing locked. I'm going to stand up and maybe you'll see the top of my head anyway. All right, which one's crossing over which one? The more interesting one is the one that we want to leave on top. In this case, this is very straight. I don't want that one on top. I want this one on top. So right next to that line, I'm just going to draw that one little stroke. And then right next to it the other way. One, I may have to go in there because it's got that ridge. Reload a little bit of paint. Make sure I always have a generous amount. I could do it one more time. Yeah, there we go. I like it. This one's just naturally on top. Okay. If you get a little extra blurble, you know, something sticking out where it doesn't belong, get out your Q-tips. They are super duper pointy, hard, not quite hard like sharp, but hard. Cute, we call them Q-tips. But they, just spit on it, they will clean up any little edges that come out where they don't belong. Okay, so we've got both sides of that. I'm going to have this one come out over here. Now, one of the reasons I was thinking, why is this not working quite like I told you it was working? I'm using the toe. Look at my heel of my paintbrush is sticking totally out towards like the camera. I've got to lean back on my angle shader. Okay, I've got to put all of the brush on the ground for all of the paint and fading to do its work. That's much nicer. Okay, so you got to pay attention to the angle of that brush. And I'll just go around and decide who. Yep, doing it again. I think part of this is my angle of my painting. Upside down and backwards is a little tougher. Now this one, I'll need that little Q-tip. Okay. I'm going to work my way around, and before I break my back, I'm going to let you guys finish yours on your own. That's the general technique. Okay. We've got our dried vines. Very happy with how those came out. Next, let's go ahead and talk about leaves. We're going to put leaves on these puppies. I think I'm almost out of avocado paint. Okay. Put out some avocado paint. We are going to use a stroke filbert. This is way different than a filbert that you picked up someplace and you don't know whether it does anything. Some are for leaves and finish nicely, and some are for slip slapping and they don't finish nicely on purpose. Really, really important that you don't feel like it's you if you can't get your filbert brush, which is cut like an oval. The Patty's Favorite dry brush that I have on my website do not finish well. The reason we use them for dry brushing is because they leave like a scratchy texture. These are designed to finish and all come off in this wonderful little point right there. That is a stroke filbert. So if you can't get, it's a push, twist, lift movement. If you can't get your brush to do that, it's very possible that it may be the brush. So try switching up and get another brush. Okay. Now we're going to add some leaves. I have got a number 4. A number 6 or a number 8 would be fine, but I think you want to be careful about the size. I think we can lose the artist buddy right now. We want water in our paint, so I've thinned it down to inky because we don't want it strong. So I've got a little bit of burnt umber in it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to sprinkle in little clusters of leaves. Now the first place I put this brush down is going to be the darkest, so we want that to be in the under area. Maybe we'll start up here. Okay, and then we'll make little clusters. So it's push, twist, lift, push, twist, lift, and then this last one is just a little touch and lift. Let me get you in close. It's one of my favorite techniques to do. Maybe we want just a little leafy. I'm painting upside down and backwards, so if I screw up, I apologize. We want to have things going in different directions. We want different sizes, we want different amounts, different configurations. Okay, maybe we want a couple of these to come out like this, and then maybe we want a couple of loose ones, real tiny, coming, oops, hello, off camera, sorry, coming out, let's see, from there. It's these ends that are kicking my butt. Okay, so push, push, twist. This brush almost completes the stroke for you. I mean, it very, very nearly does. If you notice, I'm not doing too much pushing, twisting, or lifting. I'm dragging that brush. Whoops, isn't that what? Nice little ridge I got there. As I'm bragging and stuff. Oh yeah, I'm so hot. Okay. I've decided on this video that I have a little bit of an attitude. I'm not trying to. And I think I'm meaning it as a good attitude, but if it's coming off cocky, I'm just having fun. It's sunshiny today and it's wintertime, and I think I'm loving that. My studio has nice big giant windows. We have very loud cars out there, which you're probably enjoying. So I'm just filling these areas with the leaves. Okay, we'll go around the other side. Okay, so this is what I've ended up with. And now we'll come over here. My poor little Q-tip is rolling around. These Q-tips are cool because even if you've soaked up a lot of stuff here, if you use it the next day, it'll continue to soak stuff up. But I think if you saturate it in paint like I have, I don't think it's going to work. So we're going to get into our brown, we're going to get into our green, not wet, with a medium filbert stencil brush. This is domed as well, both directions. And then we're going to rub it on the paper towel. And then we're going to come over here. Rah. What we want to do is create an area of more dense foliage, okay, or more dense, thick bracken, maybe. And so we're going to just, along the vine line, and somewhat out, if need be, we're going to thicken things with a little bit. We're going to deepen it. Doesn't have to, I'm actually almost not looking, which you can kind of tell because I'm also not on camera. High and low, just like the vine, okay? Reload as you need to. More brown or more green, whichever way you want to lean. Now I'm a poet. And the idea is not to obscure. Notice that I'm still able to see stuff through. Okay, I just want to create the impression that just a little bit more is happening than we're painting. Pardon me. Not a tough technique. You can almost, I mean, look at, I'm just kind of, it's scumbling, I guess. I call it dry rubbing because there's no paint, no water in our brush, no water in the paint. And you dry off all of the paint that you do have on your paper towel. You look for balance. This is kind of soft and light. Anywhere where you hate something, fill it in a little bit extra with this technique. Bring it out and into, so like I'm looking up at the camera screen. I'm going to bring this up a little bit higher now that my paintbrush is almost empty. Up here, this is looking lonely. I want to fill that up just a little bit. Okay, how fun this is going to be. I love this piece. And you really rub quite hard on the paper towel. Don't let, like it's a painting technique, but you know, you're actually using a little bit of muscle there. Okay, I'm liking that. We'll leave that. All right, our next step is to put our roses on. So roses can be something that people get really frustrated with. We have an awesome worksheet, and we also have an awesome DVD that just isolates just the roses and just teaches every stinking step, how to load that brush, how to blend that brush, all that kind of stuff. So if you really do get stuck, there might be, when this video launches, there might be a special on the website, so do check for that. All right, when we're doing our roses, it's really important that we just put the rose ball where we want it. So we're going to look for ugly spots. We're going to look for obvious spots. To my mind, as I'm looking up here, I'm looking at the camera to see the other side because it's actually, my eyesight is way back over here. Anyway, I'm looking at the camera and I'm seeing a big empty spot like right here. Okay, so we're going to give ourselves a little rose ball shape, and then maybe we want to put like a little, maybe a little backgroundy bud kind of thing, and then maybe just a little something or another, maybe over here. Okay, so we want to kind of cluster things. We don't want to have like ball, ball, ball. That would be like ducks kind of all lined up in a row. So we'll look for, so that's one. We'll look for obvious places. I think this kind of is obvious. We want to cross lines. We don't want to put them in the middle of a blank space where it's surrounded by things. You can certainly trace the pattern as well, but that's not, I guess the point of this exercise to my mind is to go beyond just saying, yeah, trace the pattern and fill it in. Because this is so easy. Let me grab something real quick. Alright, so I just went over to my supply closet and I just pulled the top 3 things that were in there. This is a candle base, so you can put your candle in there, okay? Wouldn't these roses look fantastic around there with the trim work that we're going to do in a little bit, with a nice dreamy candle? So you could have a decorative candle base. This is a night light that plugs in, and it just goes like in your bathroom or kitchen or whatever. But wouldn't it be fun to have just like a band of roses with some trim at the top and the bottom? If you look at the Toll TV archives for the haunted boo lace, we put it on rock lawn, and this paper pulls off, and it's sticky. You can just glue the rock lawn right on there, take it off, and do a temporary other one. And these are like dirt cheap to buy, so it's a sweet surface. How fantastic for bazaars and things like that to sell the replacements on that. This is a wine topper. This goes on the neck of a wine bottle, and glasses sit here. But imagine this pattern around here. I mean, how fantastic, right? So I'm hoping by showing you how to place these, the shapes of the roses and things like that, that you're going to learn to adapt a pattern like this or any other loose, brambly, wandering kind of pattern and create your own. So I'm hoping to break you out of the pattern shell. All right, as I'm going around this side, notice that I've got a little tiny, I've got a lot of busyness here, and I like how these vines look, so I don't want to cover them up. And so notice that I have a little 3 cluster, okay, and these will end up slightly bigger than they are here, so plan to undersize a little bit. Then I put a little one down here, and then I put this one right here. This is bad design right here, to go in a line like that. Design should stagger unless it's a symmetrical kind of thing. So you wouldn't want to put this one here and then this one right in a row. So because our little pencil is erasable with spit or varnish or whatever, I just wipe that right off and change my mind. And you know what it doesn't do is it doesn't leave smudge marks like pencils do. Okay, so then we're going to go, and maybe we want to lift up and bring that up there. Okay, and then maybe we would want to put a little bud down here. Now this is, I've got plans for that rim, so I want to be careful about not putting too much right there, or I'll have to do some more extra work. Alright, so then here, same thing, we're going to want to be careful that we don't go in a row. So do we want to drip down? Maybe so, but I've got that good branch right there, so maybe we want to lift up. Maybe that'll go there, and then maybe we'll have a little one reaching out and then one over there. So it's still going up. And then down here, good, that's a nice opportunity to go back down. Oops, that's a nice opportunity to go back down the hill. If I drive you guys completely bonkers with this project, going on and off camera, I do apologize. This is a tough one. And sometimes don't do 3. Like, don't always follow all the rules you're giving yourself. And maybe that 3rd one can be sitting over there. Or maybe we want one down here. I kind of like that idea. Yeah. You can kind of like step across with the color. That's going to be good. We're going to kiss this whole bucket with all kinds of colors. So our next job is to get our pinks ready. Alright, so somebody called this week and asked what the difference was between the Clearly Amazing Angle Shader and the Rose Brush. And as you can see, we talked about the filberts a little bit earlier. And as you can see, these look like they're virtually the same brush. This one has a little bit deeper cut. It's shorter on the heel end. Let's get something to point with. But the real difference in my mind is when you flip them this way. This one is a much finer brush, and this one's a much thicker brush. What happens when you're doing stroke roses is you need kind of thick, juicy paint. This is going to be a thicker, juicy paintbrush. This is going to be a finer paintbrush, something that won't allow so much paint to be held. Now, this does more control. And I think in this case we're doing really small little stroke roses. I think we're going to need to go on the control side and use the Clearly Amazing brush. So I'm going to get a number 3/8, and I think that the way you tell with roses, okay, the way you tell is whether or not you can fit that brush in your rosebud circle. I'm going to need to switch down a brush for some of these small roses. As I get ready to paint my rose, I need to make sure that I'm putting my paint out on my palette the correct way. And I mess this up almost every time I paint a rose. The toe of your brush is going to be painted in the light color. The heel is going to be painted in the dark color. You're going to double load your brush, and so when you're blending, you're going to go like this, and then you're going to want to go naturally into the colors. You don't blend this way. If you're left-handed, you would. So if you're left-handed, you're going to want to go and reverse the order of your paints, because the angle of the brush is how the brush needs to sit on the palette. So notice when I've got this over here, notice it's not a flat and it's not straight up and down. I'm blending on the angle, okay? So you've got to turn that brush over so it sits flat, okay? Otherwise, and you know, just rest it right on its little nose and you'll see the right angle for it, okay? But don't try to do it on its toe, because then you'll munch that little toe right there, and then if you munch the toe, you won't have a good brush anymore. All right, so that means that my highlight color needs to go on this side, and what happens is I'll just fling paints out there instead of taking my time, and then I will end up loading the toe in the wrong color, and I get them reversed, and it's messy, and I've got to wash my brush, and it's frustrating, and all that stuff. Okay, wet your brush, whoops, and mangle it on the rim of your brush basin. Pinch out the water. You just want to get it woke up so it'll absorb the water. We're going to make a drag strip or a blending strip. I guess it's not a drag strip, that's racing, huh? So we're going to load paint halfway in the light. We're going to load paint halfway in the dark. And we're going to blend. Every now and again you'll flip it over just to get that juice blended on the other side. Now I'm going to blend again. Okay. We want them to meet in the middle and have a beautiful color right in the middle. And we don't want it to get too juicy, because that's that control we were talking about. I need these to be gentle, dainty little roses. And real quick, let me show you on paper, because this wonky angle of this thing is craziness. Okay, we'll plunk a rose on our little practice sheet. So I'll get a little bit more. You're not going to be able to see it super well because of the light paper. Okay, so we'll make a rose on our practice sheet here. I'm going to do a C stroke, which just cups over the top, and it forms just a little petal. I'm going to reload frequently on the same place. Don't reload and then move, because the juice is on the palette. So as long as this stays wet, and that's why it's called a blending strip, then we're going to be good. If it gets real muddy, you're going to need to move and get a new blending strip. Then we're going to start on either side. Just put a little mark with your brush and make a smile with your brush. Don't worry about chunky edges. We want actually to have some of those chunky edges. That's going to be our basic for all of our roses. I'm keeping these roses very, very simple. If you want to make bigger, better, more rosebud things, then you can. Then we're going to take, the reason we're using an angle shader is right here. We set that brush down right about halfway up the rosebud. We push down and let that toe kind of flip out on both sides. Then the brush goes exactly angled on where that stroke ended. Okay. We're going to pull it across, finish it up. Okay, and we can add, if we want to, get a little bit more light color, we can add a couple of little tender baby strokes. And then we have a little baby rosebud. Now we're going to do some shading in here, so we're not going to do it all that fast. But we are going to put rosebuds on everything right now. So I'll show you one on the piece, and then I'll show you the next steps, and then we'll finish it the way I showed you just then. All right. The toe is probably going to need more juice and more work than the heel, because the heel is a darker color and it'll take care of itself. All right. So right here, we're going to paint our little rose. So we're going to go here, reload, depending on all kinds of things. I've got a dry heater behind me and stuff sometimes, so we're going to put our little mark here and here, and then we're going to smile. And that is the step that we're going to do. Now I'm going to switch down a brush. And let's see, where are ya? The catalog brush box, for those, I've had a bunch of questions lately. Let me show you real quick. Brush-wise. Yeah. I have things sitting on, I've got my mints and stuff sitting on the front end of this. Okay, this is the Cadillac brush box. It is, in my mind, one of the most perfect brush boxes. One of the reasons why is this thing drops down forward instead of hanging off the back side. If it hangs off the back side, then it's top heavy. If it's top heavy, then it dumps out all your brushes. I've done it a million times in class, and it's always brutal. It's always a brutal thing. But what this has in it, these are all the brushes that I use. I have separate containers of crap brushes that I've just tossed out. My scissors and tools always go here. I've got angle shaders here. I've got filberts here. My liners go right in front where I can see them. My Raphaels are right there. Specialty brushes are behind. Mops are in the very back, along with scumbly brushes. I can almost reach into this and blindfolded find the brushes that I'm looking for, or the tools. These scissors have been in here for like 8 years. It is a fantastic brush box. When you shut the box, it keeps everything dust free. Okay, so, and I just lost the insert to my clock. Okay, and then the front, of course, I put my mints and things like this as I'm using them during the day. And then I can just pick it up and put it all away. So now, the point of that whole exercise was I was getting out my littler brush. We're going to wet it. Dry it. This is going to be harder to control, so be aware of that. Like I'm even putting my glasses on to load the brush just so I can see exactly how much paint I'm picking up. Okay. So now we'll go in. We want to be careful with this. We don't want all of our roses to be looking in the same direction. This is going to be something we'll want to watch for. But we don't want them cross-eyed either. So I'm trying to think, what do I want this rosebud to do? So I'm going to make him go in this direction. Now we'll go here and here. You can leave a little space there. That's absolutely fine. And we'll make him a little bud. Now I need to switch down one more size brush for the other one. Do you see how the brush size is controlling the size of my rose? If you have a brush that's too big and you're doing, this is stroke work really. If you're using too big a brush to make a stroke work anything, then you're going to have a problem. So buy appropriate size brushes. If you're floating, one size will fit all. But if you're stroking, you have to have the right size or you won't be able to make it work. Okay, so I went and I had to go shopping down in the shop, a 1/4 inch brush. Get that all blended. I'll make a new blending strip for each of these. The tinier you get, the more control you need to exercise. We've got this is an example of the stroke visual learning guide. This is a stroke roses, and what it is, I have videotaped every stinking step and why and wherefore and all this of painting stroke roses. And then this is a step-by-step worksheet that tells about each step, where it goes, and you can paint it, it's real size, you can paint it with your brush right on top and wipe it off. So it gives you a good practice, and it talks about angles of brushes, how you're holding it, all of that. So now we'll make our little tiny baby rose. Need my little tiny baby spectacles. And this brush almost isn't going to be small enough. So the back end didn't have enough juice and I ran out of it. So I got to be careful to load enough. Yeah, I could definitely switch down. I'm trying to make a rose really tiny and I'm fighting with my brush, so I'll have to go down even one more size. So that's why, do you see, if I had used for the tinier brushes or for the tinier roses, if I had used the rose brushes, which are so thick and they make fantastic larger brushes or larger roses, then I would have ended up with, and I'm going to be really careful with this, one of the other things, sorry to interrupt myself here, you need to be aware that you have to have fresh paint. And I have muddied my stroke spot. So here's what I'm going to do. I went downstairs, went shopping, answered some questions, and now I need to get rid of the dried up paint that skimmed on top because I can't get in there with my brush. Okay, so got to have paint that you can get into or it won't work, especially when you're trying to control things. Okay, yeah, that's much better. One more time in there. And we'll make a little baby guy right here. Now I'm going uphill, so that'll be fun. Okay, so we'll make him spit and pull it off. I'm going to move him over just a little bit, and I'm going to reload. Angles, like that went uphill. My angle brush went backwards and downhill, and not going to work, okay? That just, no matter what I did, I wasn't going to be able to get that one to work. And then I'll pull that under. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so we are going to get ready to float, and I want to show you a little trick. You know how I've got my dark color, which is not very well shaken. I remember the lecture. For those of you who are looking for the paint shaker, if anybody knows a source for them, let me know so I can share. The company that I knew about went out of business. I know a lot of you have asked about that. So if anybody out there has a clue, give me an email. Shout it out. Okay. So if you are floating and you want to save yourself some work washing your brush out, washing your, going into your brush basin all the time, you can use the little mini mister. It's just a little glass vial with a fine misting tip. And you can squirt on the same spot and you'll start seeing bigger and bigger dots. Now the biggest ones aren't the ones you want. You want little and bigger ones. But watch me squirt just in one spot. They'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So now I have a variety of dot sizes that I can use. You can fill, by the way, you can fill the misters up with extender. You can fill them up with water. You can fill them up with brush cleaner. You can fill them up with, what else have I got? Color float. You can do any number of things. I've got mine labeled so that I know. Nothing like squirting a little bit of brush cleaner in your face when you think that you're squirting water. Don't ask me how I know that. Okay. So when you're floating, your brush gets thirsty and it needs water, and so you'll go into your water basin, dunk in too deep, and it'll be, you know, you'll have to just start the whole process all over. With these little dots, they actually will suck up into, watch me leave a whole blank spot right there where there used to be a bunch of water drops. They suck in just like a straw into the brush. Now I can go and load, and I'll have enough water. As I paint, I can go back and I can suck up. If I need a little bit of water, I just suck up a little one. If I need a lot of water, I can suck up a big one. The really big ones don't really suck up too well, so that's why we don't use those very often. All right, just a little trivia there, right? Now we want to deepen, we want to deepen some of these, okay? And so what we're going to do is we're just going to deepen the back side. We're going to tuck just a little bit in the throat of the rose. Okay, and that just deepens the color. Here's what we had before. Here's what we have now. That just gives it a little bit more drama, a little bit more impact. I'm not going to do all of these. I think I might just kind of randomly do kind of every other one kind of thing. Don't do them all. I think doing them all will make them all the same amount. Let's make some be tiny and little and disappearing. And let's make others be bold and, hey, here I am, bring them to the forefront, okay? Okay, so now it's time to paint a rose. We're going to just put those little lines right there, and we're going to just cut that out just a little bit. And you can add a couple of them if you want to. I'm going to pull that in. Notice I'm pulling it into exactly where the base of my rose is. I don't want to end up with a rose that's that long, and I've done that a million times. Maybe I want this one to kind of come across. Yeah, I like that. And then I'll add just one last little thing. Now I've got a little rose. We're going to put some little dark dots in there and things like that, but that is the basics. I know I'm kind of flying through it, but if I take a lot of time, the How to Paint Rose Stroke Roses video is almost an hour long just by itself because I really isolate each step. If I do that here, we're going to end up with a 15-hour long Toll TV, and I don't think that that's the goal. So now we're going to go and finish our other roses doing the same exact technique. It's all a repeat of this one. You might leave some cute ones that are like that size. You might go ahead and leave them and just make some of the bigger ones, you know, do a little bit of a randomness with them so that you have like a big rose and then a couple of little buds. And we'll do the little calyxes and things like that too. Okay, after you get done filling your brush all the way up with all kinds of mushy paint, you'll need to use some brush cleaner. This is the best brush cleaner in the universe. Like, I've washed this brush out, but watch when I do this. See if you can see it on the camera. It's already releasing the pink paint that I thought I had cleaned out of my brush. Okay, now this is going to keep your brush in nice crisp shape, and it's going to save you a lot of money. And it is the only brush cleaner that I've ever seen that will actually take dried paint out of your brush. Like, you left it in there, the kids called, you got distracted, then you just rinse it out with soapy water. If you're going to take care of your brushes and not have to clean really dried paint out, then what you'll do is you'll go to get the orange soap scrubby, and that will help keep your brushes nice and crispy clean too, as long as you don't let the paint dry in there. It won't take dry paint out. But it's awesome for getting the paint off your hands too. Alright, and then I just rinse that and change my palette direction because it's rolling downhill. Alright, pinch out all the water and I'm good. Brush is clean. Alright, now we're going to get out our green, a little bit of water. The palette, I've got my stroke filbert brush, and I've got a number 4. Now with this stroke brush, I can stretch my strokes. I can make my strokes bigger than my brush size is. So the size stroke I'm looking for is going to be like maybe a number 8. But the size brush I'm using is maybe a number 4. So now we've got these rose buds here. I really want that watered down just a little bit. I don't want screaming burnt umber, touch of burnt umber. Just put some of that over there and then just nick in with your brush and taint the whole little puddle there. Just a little bit. Knocks it back, you'll see it instantly. Alright, so now we've got these roses on here. We need something to hold them up. So I want to create bigger buds to hold those guys up. And we can have some coming out the top edges of them as well. Like this guy could have one coming out up here. Look how nice and big those rose leaves are coming out. The idea with a loose painting is to create kind of some layers. So we want to create these little soft background things. We want this rubbing to go on in the background. We want deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay, I don't think we need little roses there. So add leaves to support your roses. And I think we need something in this hole up here. Try not to make them all the same exact size. And try not to do them in even numbers. Do them in odd numbers. Just did that in even numbers, I'm sure you saw. Alright, the Raphael is not just, this kind of a brush is not just for making fine lines. I'm going to use it to dot. You could put perfect dots in the throats of these roses, but I don't think that they would be as attractive. So what I want to do, let me get you in close. When I make wheat heads or rose dots or things like that, I'm going to approach it as a kind of a jab. and it gives it a really nice irregular kind of fill. Does that make sense? It's not as patterned, even, exactly the same, that kind of thing. So we don't want everything to be the same. That's not what beauty is. Beauty is the differences in everything. So I would use a brush like this instead of using a stylus. Oh, sorry about that. And just give yourself a few dots of moon yellow. Next we want to add another layer. We're going to put water on our palette with our cool neutral. Now, get you on there. Put some of that in. You want it watery, not too watery, and you're going to blot your brush. You don't want soup on your piece. So I'll just blot it over there. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to just kind of give myself some shape of, I don't know, like kind of petally something or another's. Some can be actual little petals, some can be just floating around back there. I want it to fill. I don't want it to be too distinctive. I don't want them all the same size. Notice how I just trailed off here, but I did a big ball here. We could make it be hydrangeas. And that would be our first layer of our hydrangea. We could have them be little wisteria kind of flowers. You can make them be, these are little fantasy flowers. You can make them anything you want. Whatever is going to fill the space in your flower needs. Okay, so we'll just keep filling those, make them come out from behind some of the stuff. Not everywhere, I'm kind of getting into an everywhere mode. Alright, next we're going to dirty brush. I'm just going to put my brush into warm white and the cool neutral. And I'm going to blot. Now this is going to feel much stronger, but see how those faded into the background? You can barely see them. Okay, so these are going to be little petally kind of things on top. Now I'll isolate the petally thing. Okay, let's get you on the flat bottom so that we can actually see. This is what my little petally things look like. One stroke is a pull, then I go with another stroke and it's a blunt. I just pull it flat. I pull to the other side and then I usually just do a line dot. And that makes them look like they're all falling to the side. And you can do little clusters of them. Okay, and those just end up being like little top cluster flowers. Pardon me. So those will sit on top of, and they don't all have to have the same size and style, but they're going to sit right on top of the cool neutral little loose background flowers that you just did, and add just one more layer of depth. Okay, so you see we've got this kind of, and if we get too bright too quick it'll be wrong, so make sure that you sneak up on it a little bit. I don't really sneak up on it, but kind of sort of sneak up on it. I'm painting upside down. Okay, we should stop doing that. Look at those two, look like twinners. So now I need to come up here, turn my brush, and give myself a third little petal grouping. Alright. This time we're going to take an angle shader. We're going to put a little water on our palette and create kind of a little washy, floaty kind of thing. I'm going to pick up the, what color is it? Cranberry wine. And work it on the toe of my brush, real washy, real washy. This flower petal is sitting there light, kind of dark in the middle. It's not very balanced. I'm going to go ahead and just wash over one side of that. It's going to give it just a little bit different look. Same thing over here. I'm going to just create a little bit of a, I don't want to do them all. I don't want these to become flaming pink flowers, but I just don't want them to be quite so white and pale as these other guys are. Okay. Maybe I'll do a petal and a side over here, and not everything. Alright, so next, I think I keep saying that. Alright, so next. Lots of steps in this one, but they're very fast steps. This goes really quickly if you trust in the process. Now we want to create some dreamy background roses that don't exist. So we're going to go into our raspberry and paint things that don't exist. How fun is that? Okay, we're going to do the dry rub technique. So I've got my pink on my crescent stencil brush. You'll want to buy, these are cheap brushes, the bristles fall out. It seems like something you might not want, but they're cheap, cheap, cheap. They're perfectly shaped. They do the job of a $20 brush, and you can own 20 of these so that you never have to worry about whether you've got a dry one or not, and just deal with brushing off a few hairs from time to time. They last and last, even with the hairs falling out every time or every now and again. And so anyway, but the crescent stencil is my favorite. The domes are my second favorite. The domes come in way more sizes, so they're very, very convenient. But I rarely ever use them for stenciling. I only use them for backgrounds and dry rubbing and base coating canvas. They're fantastic for that as well. All right, now that I talked my brush dry, okay, we want to create things that are not there. And what we're going to do with that is we want to create roses that aren't really back there. We're going to put a little bit of a pink here and there to say, hey, maybe there's a little rose behind, growing underneath some of this stuff. And maybe it's a deeper rose, that kind of thing. Don't put it everywhere, just a little bit, little kisses of stuff. Wherever you feel like maybe you don't have enough pink carrying. And so we want to create a little meandering story here. And that's going to help fuzz things out. Okay, this end looks like it could really use some pink, and it's just a little lonely looking over here. So see how that, look at what that did. This whole area has a whole bunch of these blank spots, and this area that area right there was just blank, and then I just filled it with a little pinch of this color, and now it's not so lonely looking anymore. Okay, it just adds something, just a little bit of a rub. Now I'm going to get another one out. I'll get a dome out this time, and the yellow is going to be the moon yellow. And you're going to do the same thing with that, okay? Might be in different spots than you might think. The yellow really pops this piece, I think. It just gives it a kind of a bright freshness. So do you see how that just lights it up just a little bit? Maybe it's almost like a green or something. I don't know what it's actually doing, but I love the look of it. So we'll put the pink and the yellow together and go all the way around. Next I want to create a little bit more light petals. So this is a piece, here's what you do when you're painting something loose like this. You do each step and then you reassess. You do each step and then you reassess. And you just move on like that, because the more steps you add, then the more you can assess what's actually going on. Right now my roses are standing by themselves still. I've got rose, rose. I can hop from rose to rose, but I can't really walk from rose to rose. And I more want to walk. This is a vine. It's not. It's a kind of a, oh, what do you call it? Not a universal vine, but I mean it's something that is all twined in together. I can't easily go from element to element without taking a big giant step. These little white flowers that I'm about to pop in here are going to help me do that. So see how that brightened that up, and now suddenly I'm almost able to approach this next element. But I can't do too many of those because I don't have the foundation set for them. So maybe I would want to go and add a little bit more, or maybe I want to make this cluster a little bit bigger. And I've got a secret weapon, and I'll show you that in just a second. So add some white if you need it. Squint your eyes at it, like even do it at the screen right now. Squint your eyes and see if things look even to you, or if they look like they're spaced to, like you got one thing really standing out there. All right, I just went around the corner, and what I'm creating is a bigger grouping of, I'm totally looking on the camera and trying to make my hand do what it's like doing the mirror trick. Okay, so it's totally creating that bigger grouping of flowers, and that is helping me connect to the next bigger grouping of flowers. You don't want to go like way up here and put white accents. You want to keep your brighter stuff tucked a little bit closer to your element. Otherwise you're going to have polka dots, and you don't want polka dots. All right, my secret weapon. Here we go. This is my favoriteest thing to do, and it finishes projects off. Maxine Thomas, who a lot of you will know who she is, once said that she paints to line, because she always lines everything that's in the show. Well, I think I paint to spatter. So, okay, I go in here, I've got my White Wonder brush, and it is a filbert comb type brush, and it's got a long set of hairs, and it's cut in a real jaggedy tooth end. It's like having a whole bunch of little liner brushes all wound together. Okay, so we're going to go into our raspberry color, and we're going to make it like we're going to line. So we're going to put in a real washy, inky type style of paper. Okay, so we're going to load our brush all the way to the top in the paint, in the washy paint. And then we're going to get a big, heavy handled brush. So one of these dome stencil brushes would be fine. And then over here, let's get you, we always test, and you want to make sure you don't have a whole bunch of stuff near you. If you have, you know, your nice white jeans on, you might want to cover up, because this does have a habit of going everywhere. So I always blob off on the palette. I don't care about other paints next to it, but I always get rid of the big chunks. They fall off first. And put it nice and hard. Get rid of the big stuff. Okay. Then watch what this does. This is so cool. So, if I want to make this go exactly where I want, like let's draw a little line. Okay. Normally spatters make snow. So what I'm going to do, the lower my hand gets to the table, then the more control I have. The higher up I go, or if I'm way up here over my piece, then the less control I have. So what I can do is I can anchor this. I want to aim my brush slightly in front of where I want the spatters to land, because they're going to leap off and they're going to land right in that circle, in theory, right? It sounds like big talk. All right, so now I've got to talk my brush dry. I'm all nervous. Maybe I can't make it happen on TV. Okay, so we're going to go over here, and I'm just going to tap it a little bit. And look where those spatters landed. Now I do have one or two over here, and if I wasn't on paper, oh, hang on. And if I had longer arms, if I was on my project, I would simply grab out a Q-tip, which are the super pointy Q-tips, and I would lick the end, and these would just suck right up onto the Q-tip. And so I could clean up any ones that I don't want that are in an inadvertent kind of place. So I'm going to reload my brush, and then I'll show you, we'll go for a bigger spatter range. Now I'm going to lift up this time, and I'm going to have that poised kind of a little bit in front but over. And now you can't land into that circle if you just feather touch and try to sneak up on it like this. Okay, that doesn't work. So lift my brush up, and I've got to give it a sharp little smack. And now I've got a bigger cluster of basically clustered things. What I love about this is, look down here, like there's not a bunch of stuff way over here, but I was spattering, right? So now watch what happens. I love my brush. I think we need a little more water. Getting kind of dry. And then here, let me get further out for you. I'll come here, and I'll hold my brush about 9 inches. You can't see nothing. About 9 inches above. Okay. And now what I have is I have snow all over the entire piece. Okay, so that is how you control a spatter. And I love doing it. This is my secret weapon. Ooh, and there's one more thing that you can do. I forgot. Okay. And I have, the reason I use this White Wonder brush is because for some reason it's just works that way. I used to do it with a fan brush, but I didn't have control. And then I ended up, somebody walked off with my brush in class, and I ended up needing a substitute, and so accidents happen, and it was wonderful, and there you go. Now, what if I want to spatter in a trajectory, like in a line? Well, you can do that too. So what you do is you turn your brush sideways, and you give it a really sharp whack. And watch the paint from the hand. Okay, this is why you don't leave your paintbrush in the water, because your handle will come off when you're filming Toll TV. No problem. I mean, the brush is good. I shouldn't have left my brush in the water. I apologize. I feel really bad. So, I think these are things that we should talk about, because I'm wrong. So when you leave your brush in the water, the glue that's in the head will soften, and I should be able to pull this out. Yeah. It'll soften the glue, and then the glue crumbles and this handle gets all destroyed and whatever. Okay, so don't leave your paintbrush in the water is the first rule of thumb. Second, what if you did and you're sorry, just like me, and you don't want to go buy a new brush? Well, you don't have to. Just get rid of the loose stuff, because that will get in your way, just like it just did with me. Get rid of the loose stuff, sand it down. You can give it a coat of paint if you've got plenty of paint laying around. Give it a coat of paint and a coat of varnish. Make sure you don't have any rough edges. And then a pop of wood glue right on in there. Give it a twist and let it dry. I've still got water in there. That's funny. Okay, so then let it dry overnight, and then you recover the brush where the head is still good, but the handle kind of got destroyed. Okay, so that is how you do the trajectory. Sorry for the distraction. Okay, so my secret weapon is spattering. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my dots with controlled spatters. You've got to go at the angle you want it to hit. So I'm going to try and jockey around here just a little bit. You won't be able to see this very well, but you'll get the idea. Okay, so I'm going to go with the different colors. Let me do another one. I'll do green. You can use any of the colors on your palette. I'm going to do green where my greens are, pink where my pinks are, and fill my holes. And see how that one, like, I don't know, let's see if you can see it. Love these ones. Where are you? There. See how that's kind of all run together a little bit? That's cool. That makes it look like there's something sprouting and moving and all that kind of stuff. So don't look for just perfect little like snow dots. Look for things that carry the eye and add one more layer of depth. Oh, one more thing to say about spattering is it takes a little bit of time to dry, and if you're on this curved surface, you want to make sure that you're not going to drip. So if you're really, really sloppy wet, which you shouldn't be, but if you are, don't allow it to drip, so watch it. And then don't flip it around and paint the other side until you're sure this side's dry, otherwise you'll run all your dots across the piece. Okay, we're going to have one more Razzle Dazzle, and that's going to be with white, or warm white. And I want this really, 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 really isolated. One little tap. I don't know if you can pick up on that on the screen, but I think it really adds a whole lot of, just a little, it's like putting a shine on a diamond, you know? A couple little flakes just falling off there. Those are pretty. I like them bigger like that. Okay. This one escaped down here. Actually, I see I let some others escape, but the Q-tip just goes right in. Love it because you can just go right in the middle of all this, isolate a dot, and pull it off. Alright, as I'm getting ready to figure out my trim, oops, sorry, I'm looking at some leafing, and I think I might want to do a little bit of leafing on my border and a little bit of leafing on this bottom band. The two that I'm looking at, I'll show you. So what I do when I'm trying to decide stuff like this is I take out, this is variegated dawn leaf. This has got a little bit of blue in it and a little bit of gold in it, and it's just got a kind of a mellow kind of look. And then in the foils, there's an earth foil kit. This one is one that is almost exactly the same color as the base coat. I mean, it really looks very, very similar to me. And that might add a little shimmer without adding a different color to the mix. So I'm kind of playing around with those, and I've got to decide what I'm going to do with this band down here. What I've debated is I've debated checks, stripes, a band, polka dots, all kinds of things like that. So now I'm going to sit and I'm going to play in one small area, and I'm going to see what I like best, and then I'll come back to you with the results. Well, I don't think there's much contest. I threw on these first couple checks, and I think I just like them. They're just nice and neutral. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. They're cool neutral, actually. And we're going to use a number 12 flat. And next time I'm painting on something flat. Okay, and we're going to go that way, and then I'm going to pull down from the top because otherwise I run into these ridges. You use the brush to make the check width, And I don't want them to touch. I don't think that that's necessary. They don't need to line up evenly. I'm a big don't make it perfecty kind of person, and I know that really goes against the grain for some of you, and I won't count it against you if you don't count it against me. So, you know, go with the flow, whatever you like. If you need them perfect, then tape it and do all that kind of stuff. But I think just nice, and see how they're washy. There's just a little bit of water in the paint. Just add a little neutral something going on. Alright, I've got my band completed, and I think it looks really cute and very subtle. I could maybe pop it a little bit more, but I'll wait and see what I think in a little bit. Next, I think whatever happens there needs to happen inside here. And so what I've got is my camera way in too tight. Alright, so what I have is I have a half pipe compass, and it is a compass that has a lead and things. You just pull it apart and remove and tighten the lead here, and then that's got that point that you follow along with. And what I love about this is it's got a protective cap. I cannot tell you how many times I almost stabbed myself on my old one. And one time I was teaching in class and needed my compass, and I was out of lead, which they don't carry anywhere, and we do have it on our website just for principles. But your extra leads hold in the bottom, in the back side here. So whenever you need to change a lead, and notice that one of these is brown, you can use the 8-in-1 color pencil leads. They're the same size as compass leads, so you can use those and change your color. And that just screws on, so it's all stored right on board. So when you use your compass, like this isn't just for making circles. What you're going to do is you're going to estimate how big you want that band to be. And then you're going to run that won't be big enough, maybe a little bit bigger. Keeping our hand smooth. Whoops. Keeping our hand smooth. Got to keep the same angle too. Compasses only work if you keep the same angle as you're going around. Oops. And when this dips and goes down, it's a little bit tougher, but infinitely easier than trying to measure and go all the way around. Okay, so now go all the way around. I know some of you are out there going like, yeah, where has this been all my life? And I have a totally perfectly even, awesome band. Okay, now the color that we had on the other side was the cool neutral, and the color that's the base coat is, let's see, it was shale, is it shale green? I think it was shale green. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse, since I did a darker color green inside there, I'm going to do this color green. How big is that? Is that big enough for a 12? I might want to go down a size on my brush. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. I think I'm going to a number 8 brush. I'm going to mix a little bit of our base coat color into the shale green, just to tint it. Could also neutral it out with a little bit of brown if I wanted to, and then we make a wash out of it, just like we did with the other side. I made a mess out of my brush. Lot. And then we'll do the same thing here that we did over there, except for it'll be in a lighter color and slightly smaller. Okay, so that is how, and when that dries, it ought to be nice and neutral and should just be real subtle. Alright, the next step that I want to do, I've got my checks on, and I want to put a little bit of gold leaf. I've decided that I really like the Dawn leaf, which is the variegated, and I showed you this already. It's got a little bit of blue-green to it, and I think that's going to be just the right amount of mutedness. That I have a whole pile of leaf over here trying to decide on which colors. One of the things that I want to do, I'm going to start down here on this rim. One of the things I need to do is I need to mask, and you've got to be really careful and very sensitive about what you're doing with masking on tin. I think tin just tends to be a little bit more sensitive to things, so I'm going to use my tape, but I'm going to do this when I know that I have time to do it all at one time. I don't want to put tape on my paint, and my paint isn't fresh. That's another thing. So let's talk about taping on paint. If your tape goes, if you tape on paint when your paint is fresh, and then you leave the tape on, you can have more of a chance of peeling your paint. Okay, so you want to be careful to do it on cured paint. This has been based now maybe 3, 4, or 5 days. I feel like it's cured enough to be okay. And that's just through the painting process, you know. So then I'm going to paint, but because it's on tin just is always, I'm just always a little bit leery about what I'm doing on tin. It'll work out, but I just want to make sure I'm being a little more sensitive. So then I'm going to do this when I can take it all, put it all on and take it all off at the same time, because the longer tape is on, the worse it goes for the taping situation. So what I want to do is I want to tape right next to that ridge. And that because I have to go around corners and it's concave, I want stretchy tape, and that's what this is. So I'm going to pull it and make it bend. Okay, I just want to prevent the leaf from going on to this little border. And I can do this one up here as well, which will, whoops, hello. When you press the tape down, it sticks. Not when you just have it floating there. Okay, so get that on there. Pull it nice and tight. The more you pull, the more you can bend. Okay, so get that pinched in there. And then on the top, we'll do the same thing. And then on the insides as well. So we'll get that lined up. And then as we come around here, pull that tight. And then this one we're going to need to be a little bit more careful of, because it's really a funny angle. But this is going to make my job much easier. Okay, so we'll do that, and I'm going to do that also on this inside rim over here. So that, I might want to follow a line, so I may be tempted to take my compass and make a nice even line so that I know exactly, when you have a rolled edge, it's not as precise. So you can decide if you can tape straight or not. And if not, then the line will help you stick to, like, this is where I want the tape to go. All right, when it comes to putting on the medium, I've got 2 choices. I can use tack it over and over, and I can use Mona Lisa. I've got adhesive size. There's a thick one that's really nice as well. So I guess 3 choices. And so in this case, I'm unsure, and I really think that, actually I think I'm probably pretty sure, but I don't want a lot of leaf on this. If I do a couple of coats of either of these, then I'm going to get a really solid adhesion. And that means that I won't have any skip marks. So if you like it more solid, that's what you would do. You would do 2 or 3 coats. I want it real faded, real scratchy, real, you know, not so solid. So I'm going to use 1 coat of either, and because I really want it fadey, I'm going to go with the tack it over and over. So then what we'll do is just put some of this on. Use your little old ratty brush and just apply. And apply in kind of a patting motion. If it seems like it's going on kind of thin, sometimes you can lay stuff like if this was flat, I think it would be laying on a little bit heavier, but because it's on a bending surface, the high part will get kind of wiped off. So I might go ahead and get 1 coat on and then do a 2nd coat, just so that I don't have it too thin. And you'll do that on all the areas you're going to leave, and then you immediately remove that tape. As soon as you've got all your coats on, take the tape off, because the tape will have adhesive on, and if the adhesive is drying, then the adhesive will stick to the tape, and then you'll pull the adhesive off, if that makes sense. So it makes it easier, but you got to be conscious to get it done quickly. So I'm going to go right back over. I'm not letting anything cure. Get my little 2nd sort of coat on. And I'm going to whip this tape off. Now while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to get my other side here taped, and I'm going to do this rim. So I can't set this down, but I can do my rim while I'm doing this. Okay, so plan on doing one side at a time, so that way you can get a nice, you can manage it at the same time. You don't get sticky stuff everywhere. When this stuff starts getting tacky, it's real irritating. And make sure you wash your brush out right away. Otherwise you will have a sticky brush, and then you'll have to use the some strong cleaners to get it clean. Now in the particular case of this, where I have the taped rim and the like it's rolled over, brushing that's going to be a pain. So what I'm going to do is get out my makeup applicator and figure out how I can set all this down and do it all at one time. And I'm going to just tap, 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 keeping it inside the tape on there. And I'll do a couple of coats, but I have to do it quickly, so you want to work in little batches. And so I'll do that side, and then I'll immediately flip on over here to this side and tap that on over here. And then as soon as I do the other side, I'll go do, I don't know if I want this thing done or not. Okay, so put that over there. And I'll go over here, and then I'll repeat the process and then whip that tape off. It's not like a panic situation, but you do want to make sure you don't want to wreck it and have to do it again, you know, so. Alright, as I'm getting ready, I wrapped one side of this over here, and sometimes it helps to, you know, get a head start. And I was sticking some spare pieces on here. That's not going to work very efficiently. So what you do is you just lay this over gently, and then use your powder puff to stick it on, and then try to do it so that you don't have too much waste. And this is probably, I should have got it a little closer to the edge. You can reuse these bigger pieces. You can sprinkle them onto flat areas and things like that. But then you just wipe it off, and that breaks the edge and it seals the gold down. You can use a brush as well. And then so tear off the big piece so that you can reuse it. And then you wipe down. And then it cups it very nicely and takes all the tacky away. You can varnish on top if you want to, which we'll do at the end. Alright, I've got my gold leafing all finished, and I have to say it looks like it was applied with a leafing machine. I wish there was such a thing. But absolutely perfect edges because of the green tape. The stretchy tape went around the corners, sealed everything down using the powder puff. Fantastic. So don't be afraid of leafing. Foil works exactly the same way. Foil will adhere just a little bit less if you don't put as much product on, so you need to pay more attention to your product, and never try to put foil or gold leaf on until your product is dried clear. Okay, so you got to have it clear. Next we're going to go into some finishing. I got a little bit of my leaf over here. I had a blob of my adhesive got there, and everything will stick to it, so a little bit of paint right there is going to take that right off for me. As I'm getting ready to fix my background paint, where I got my gold leaf, realizing that I have a little bit of a mix situation, I really wish I would have been using an airtight peel-off palette. This has got, it's one of the best I think I've ever seen. It's got a rubber gasket that goes all the way around. If I'd had my project paints mixed and put into here, I can mist them at the end of the day, put my gasket sealed palette back on top, my lid back on top. It actually snaps down on all the sides so it stays tight, and keep it flat of course, and then just put it away until you're ready to paint again. And the same thing with the little one. This is a small size. It actually has a lift out tray for cleaning. It also has a rubberized gasket, and it's a nice little travel size. So I wish I would have been doing this, because that would have kept my palette fresh and I wouldn't have to remix and match. Right, I want to paint my handle, and I think that my overall color palette is going to be prettier to have the handle in pink, but I think straight pink can be a very scary color, so I'm going to mix a little bit of brown in it. Notice I'm not on my stinking Stay Wet palette, because I know I'm at the end, I know I'm going to finish it today, but still, to be really prepared, I'd be better off to be on the wet palette. And I think I'm going to leaf the edges of this so it'll go, so I'll go ahead and paint up to that. Do a couple coats. You could sand this just a little bit if you wanted to make sure that you've got good adhesion. This seems like it's sticking just fine. Not so worried about this. Okay, as I'm getting ready to varnish, I've got little fleckles of my the gold leafing in there. I'm going to get my paper towel wet, hopefully with fairly clean water, and I'm just going to go ahead and wipe up the little fleckles. Because when I varnish, I'm not going to want to have embedded little flecks of this. And maybe you do want that. Maybe that's the way you want it to be. But anyway, just go ahead and wipe it down everywhere. Make sure your paint is dry. Everything's dry. Dry is good. Next, I want to add some detail to our little handle. Ah, my mat is sticky here. Okay, so we're going to mix our pink. What pink was that? That was the French mauve, with some warm white to lighten it up. Maybe just a touch of the brown to keep it in that neutral kind of toned state. And then with just a little flat brush, we'll come onto our handle and we'll put a little row of checks. And we'll hope when we get around to the other side that they're somewhat even. Maybe two more, maybe one more. This is where estimating comes in. Okay, so just a little bit of a check moment. And this top check is just going to be just a little kind of hash. And then we'll band it with something. And then repeat on the other side. Okay, I think what I've decided to do on the handle, I want it to be cute. So I think what I've decided to do is use the same pattern motif as I used on the basket itself. And I'll just sketch myself a little, see if I can't make a little kind of a vine kind of motif. If I did a couple of little roses and then did a little flower thing, would I care that I didn't have one over here? I think I need to do one on both sides. I'll go right through that little spot where my paint came off and I had to patch it. And then, yeah, I think that'll be okay. So I've got my leafing medium drying on this little edge right here. I just went ahead and put on the tack it over and over. Ooh, and I'm so about to use the wrong color to do this. So I needed sable brown, not burnt umber. So we'll do exactly the same techniques that we did before. Okay, so get that so I've got a good angle. And we'll see if we need any little things pulled out. Give us opportunities for leaves. Let that dry. I hate to repeat this motif because it is exactly like on the thing, but I also understand that going back and finding video and all that kind of stuff is a little bit more awkward. I've got a little chip spot that I set it down on my handle. Okay, so that needed to be thinner. Do you see how dark that is? Like if you squint at that, it looks like a giant polka dot. Need to add some water to my brush. A lot. No, that's going to be too thin. And then add our little leaves. Got to get rid of the sticky on there. Little sweet leaves. Remember to make the little clusters. Okay. We'll add our little rosebud balls. Alright, we'll need 3 different sizes. We don't want all 3 the same. Kind of nestled in there together. Let them dry. Okay, I think on these guys I'm going to use the cranberry wine on the handles and use a little bit of white mixed in with the sachet pink or the mauve pink. And I'm just going to do them as buds. So I've got my one, I'm going to go do this other big one that I've got here. And I have to switch to a smaller brush. Don't think I'm going to make them whole roses. I think that'll get too fussy on the handle. Oh, and did we ever talk about calyxes? Did we ever? No, because I made like everybody into, hey, we have to talk about calyxes. We need a round pro. When we are doing, I just totally left these poor guys naked. Put a little bit of burnt umber in your green with your round pro. I got a number 2. And then we totally need to, let's get you in a little bit closer. Pull up, so I'm pressing and just cupping, and then I'm wiggling and coming to a point and just making a little calyxy kind of thing. Little pressure here, because he's a little baby. And just close them all up on the bottom and connect them. Alright, I'm going to add a little bit of our little white flowers, so we'll get out our, I have some out, cool neutral. Some water, and then just create little flower spots. Not too heavy. This is when you start feeling like you're juggling. Adds a little bit of yellow to this pink. It's funny how colors look different on different colors. Now we'll pick up just a little bit of white and we'll make little petals next to them. Not really any kind of stroke happening here, just little dabs. Touch it with your finger if you need to. Okay, we need our little yellow throat dots. They're yellow, moon yellow. You could also do these with the dark red, which would probably look really nice. I'm just trying to keep it consistent. Having a little bit of yellow up here is a good idea. The gold actually will add just a little bit of yellow. My rosebud got messy. Boop. So did my dots. Okay. I think it's a cute little handle accessory. The gold looks pretty. I think that'll be very nice. Okay, I've got my little Easter egg cloth. When you see fabrics with inspiration on them, you should get them and save them. Make little files that have, like, you know, different kinds of inspiration in them, and they make great resources later when you're trying to come up with things, as long as you've got them organized. All right, I've got my Traditions varnish. I've shaken it up. I've got my varnish sponge, which was our base coat sponge, and it's time to get some varnish going on here. So let's back you up. Okay, I've got it dry, and I'm just going to, hopefully my dots are dry, I'm going to blot this onto this and then smooth it out. And the reason I'm doing that is it's got all these shapes in here, and I want it in all the shapes. So now once I've got it on there, I'll just lob it out like this. And that will do me for that, just for that initial thing. Now I want my edges to all these top edges to get varnished, because there's a little bit of adhesive that will, you know, something won't have stuck or something like that. And I don't want it dripping, so I'm just got it flat in my sponge, and I'm just dabbing it onto this edge. I want to make sure that there is varnish on that edge. Oh yeah, I want to make sure that there's gold leaf on my painted handle. Yikes. Okay. Keeping everybody in control here. So just dab, dab, dab. And then I'll wait till this part all dries. Before I start getting busy on the other part. Whoa, don't let anything drip. If you wanted to put a second coat on, you certainly could. You'd probably go right about now, and you're probably good. Varnish dries really quick when you're doing thin coats. Just make sure that you catch anything that looks like it's trying to sneak over the edge. That variegated leafing is absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so we'll let that sit and dry. All right, it is a beautiful spring day, and I've got motorcycles all up and down these streets. So apparently everybody took their Harley out. Okay, I'm going to just wipe on my varnish going around the edges here. Make sure I get right up on the gold. Keeping nice thin coats. Okay, just like we did with the base coat, and you want to reflect it in the, use the light and tip it to make sure that you've got it even and don't get any drips. Allow it to dry. Okay, so I've got, I didn't put that in water. Got to be careful with your sponges or you're going to wreck them. I got distracted. Okay, so I've got my varnish on there and it's nice and dry. It's looking really nice. Now what I want to do, the thing with tin is tin will chip. We talked about this earlier. The varnish goes through, it sticks to the paint, and then depending on how you're primed, things go through and it tends to chip all the way down to that slick tin surface. So that's why you end up with paint that chips all the way down to the tin. So what we can do to prevent that is, number one, prep it right, okay, which we talked about before, and then this had that lovely coat of stuff and I didn't really have to prep, but we did talk about our prep. Then what we can do also is we can use soluble wax on our surface and coat it everywhere, and that has a tendency of helping the tin not chip. Okay, I don't know if it's because the impact slides off. I don't know why. Maybe it holds things together better. I don't have a why for you, but I do know that I've been told this by many, many, many people who've done a lot of tin. So the wax is the way the experts say to go. And when I find out a reason why, I will share that. So what we're going to do is we're just taking a little bit of wax. This is the soluble wax. This is food safe, so you could, when you get your inside varnished and stuff, you can do the inside, put the soluble wax in it, and then it's safe to put buns and rolls and things like that in there if you want to serve out of it. So we're just going to apply this all over, a nice thin coat, and then you're going to wipe it off. Okay, so wipe it off, and then, or kind of buff it in, and then you're going to let that dry. Leave it alone till the next day, and then you're going to come with a fresh paper towel and you're going to buff it all off, and it leaves a really hard surface. It's fantastic for floor cloths, and it just does things that varnish can't do. So the wax is the way to go. Anyway, and so then you'll buff that off and you'll have a finished piece. And one last thing I want to say about the waxed finish. I have done this at conventions and things like that where I've brought my pieces, and I've had them sitting on the counter, and people will ask, they'll reach out and they'll touch them. The ones that get all of the attention, the ones that everybody wants to know, how in the world did I do that and yada yada, they're the ones that I've gone ahead and done the wax step to. Wax just adds a luster and a quality feel. So if you're trying to elevate any of your projects, even for craft shows, I would say absolutely go this extra step, because the higher the quality, the perceived value increases. That is a cheap application. Takes a little bit of time, a little elbow grease, no money hardly. This has lasted me, I don't know how, this is a price tag from my shop from 10 years ago. So I've had this for 10 years and I'm halfway gone. So it lasts and lasts and lasts. And it doesn't go bad, it doesn't dry up. So, okay, so I'm getting ready to varnish. I've got little fleckles of my, the gold leafing in there. I'm going to get my paper towel wet, hopefully with fairly clean water. And I'm just going to go ahead and wipe up the little fleckles. Because when I varnish, I'm not going to want to have embedded little flecks of this, and maybe you do want that. Maybe that's the way you want it to be. But anyway, just go ahead and wipe it down everywhere. Make sure your paint is dry. Everything's dry. Dry is good. Next, I want to add some detail to our little handle. Ah, my mat is sticky here. Okay, so we're going to mix our pink. What pink was that? That was the French mauve with some warm white to lighten it up. Maybe just a touch of the brown to keep it in that neutral kind of toned state. And then with just a little flat brush, we'll come onto our handle and we'll put a little row of checks. And we'll hope when we get around to the other side that they're somewhat even. Maybe two more, maybe one more. This is where estimating comes in. Okay, so just a little bit of a check moment. And this top check is just going to be just a little kind of hash. And then we'll band it with something. And then repeat on the other side. Okay, I think what I've decided to do on the handle, I want it to be cute. So I think what I've decided to do is use the same pattern motif as I used on the basket itself. And I'll just sketch myself a little, see if I can't make a little kind of a vine kind of motif. If I did a couple of little roses and then did a little flower thing, would I care that I didn't have one over here? I think I need to do one on both sides. I'll go right through that little spot where my paint came off and I had to patch it. And then, yeah, I think that'll be okay. So I've got my leafing medium drying on this little edge right here. I just went ahead and put on the tack it over and over. Ooh, and I'm so about to use the wrong color to do this. So I needed sable brown, not burnt umber. So we'll do exactly the same techniques that we did before. Okay, so get that so I've got a good angle. And we'll see if we need any little things pulled out. Give us opportunities for leaves. Let that dry. I hate to repeat this motif because it is exactly like on the thing, but I also understand that going back and finding video and all that kind of stuff is a little bit more awkward. I've got a little chip spot that I set it down on my handle. Okay, so that needed to be thinner. Do you see how dark that is? Like if you squint at that, it looks like a giant polka dot. Need to add some water to my brush. Lot. No, that's going to be too thin. And then add our little leaves. Got to get rid of the sticky on there. Little sweet leaves. Remember to make the little clusters. Okay. We'll add our little rosebud balls. Alright, we'll need 3 different sizes. We don't want all 3 the same. Kind of nestled in there together. Let them dry. Okay, I think on these guys I'm going to use the cranberry wine on the handles and use a little bit of white mixed in with the sachet pink or the mauve pink. And I'm just going to do them as buds. So I've got my one. I'm going to go do this other big one that I've got here. I'm going to have to switch to a smaller brush. Don't think I'm going to make them whole roses. I think that'll get too fussy on the handle. Oh, and did we ever talk about calyxes? Did we ever? No, because I made like everybody into, hey, we have to talk about calyxes. We need a round pro. when we are doing, I just totally left these poor guys naked. Put a little bit of burnt umber in your green with your round pearl. Get a number 2. And then we totally need to, let's get you in a little bit closer. Pull up, so I'm pressing and just cupping, and then I'm wiggling and coming to a point and just making a little calyxy kind of thing. Little pressure here, because he's a little baby. And just close them all up on the bottom and connect them. Alright, I'm going to add a little bit of our little white flowers, so we'll get out our, I have some out, cool neutral. Some water, and then just create little flower spots. Not too heavy. This is when you start feeling like you're juggling. Adds a little bit of yellow to this pink. It's funny how colors look different on different colors. Now we'll pick up just a little bit of white, and we'll make little petals next to them. Not really any kind of stroke happening here, just little dabs. Touch it with your finger if you need to. Okay, we need our little yellow throat dots. They're yellow, moon yellow. You could also do these with the dark red, which would probably look really nice. I'm just trying to keep it consistent. Having a little bit of yellow up here is a good idea. The gold actually will add just a little bit of yellow. My rosebud got messy. Oop. So did my dots. Okay. I think it's a cute little candle accessory. The gold looks pretty. I think that'll be very nice. Okay, I've got my little Easter egg cloth. When you see fabrics with inspiration on them, you should get them and save them. Make little files that have, like, you know, different kinds of inspiration in them, and they make great resources later when you're trying to come up with things. As long as you've got them organized. All right, I've got my Traditions varnish. I've shaken it up. I've got my varnish sponge, which was our base coat sponge, and it's time to get some varnish going on here. So let's back you up. Okay, I've got it dry, and I'm just going to, hopefully my dots are dry, I'm going to blot this onto this and then smooth it out. And the reason I'm doing that is it's got all these shapes in here, and I want it in all the shapes. So now once I've got it on there, I'll just lob it out like this. And that will do me for that, just for that initial thing. Now I want my edges to all these top edges to get varnished, because there's a little bit of adhesive that will, you know, something won't have stuck or something like that. And I don't want it dripping, so I'm just got it flat in my sponge, and I'm just dabbing it onto this edge. I want to make sure that there is varnish on that edge. Oh yeah! I want to make sure that there's gold leaf on my painted handle. Yikes. Okay. Keeping everybody in control here. So just dab, dab, dab. And then I'll wait till this part all dries. Before I start getting busy on the other part. Whoa, don't let anything drip. If you wanted to put a second coat on, you certainly could. You'd probably go right about now, and you're probably good. Varnish dries really quick when you're doing thin coats. Just make sure that you catch anything that looks like it's trying to sneak over the edge. That variegated leafing is absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so we'll let that sit and dry. All right, it is a beautiful spring day, and I've got motorcycles all up and down these streets. So apparently everybody took their Harley out. Okay, I'm gonna just wipe on my varnish going around the edges here. Make sure I get right up on the gold. Keeping nice thin coats. Okay, just like we did with the base coat, and you want to reflect it in the, use the light and tip it to make sure that you've got it even and don't get any drips. Allow it to dry. Okay, so I've got, I didn't put that in water. Got to be careful with your sponges or you're going to wreck them. I got distracted. Okay, so I've got my varnish on there and it's nice and dry. It's looking really nice. Now, what I want to do, the thing with tin is tin will chip. We talked about this earlier. The varnish goes through, it sticks to the paint, and then depending on how you're primed, things go through and it tends to chip all the way down to that slick tin surface. So that's why you end up with paint that chips all the way down to the tin. So what we can do to prevent that is, number one, prep it right, okay, which we talked about before, and then this had that lovely coat of stuff and I didn't really have to prep, but we did talk about our prep. Then what we can do also is we can use salable wax on our surface and coat it everywhere, and that has a tendency of helping the tin not chip. Okay, I don't know if it's because the impact slides off, I don't know why, maybe it holds things together better. I don't have a why for you, but I do know that I've been told this by many, many, many people who've done a lot of tin. So the wax is the way the experts say to go. And when I find out a reason why, I will share that. So what we're going to do is we're just taking a little bit of wax. This is the salable wax. It's food safe, so you could, when you get your inside varnished and stuff, you can do the inside, put the salable wax in it, and then it's safe to put buns and rolls and things like that in there if you want to serve out of it. So we're just going to apply this all over, a nice thin coat, and then you're going to wipe it off. Okay, so wipe it off, and then, or kind of buff it in, and then you're going to let that dry. And leave it alone till the next day, and then you're going to come with a fresh paper towel, and you're going to buff it all off, and it leaves a really hard surface. It's fantastic for floor cloths, and it just does things that varnish can't do. So the wax is the way to go. Anyway, and so then you'll buff that off and you'll have a finished piece. And one last thing I want to say about the waxed finish. I have done this at conventions and things like that where I've brought my pieces and I've had them sitting on the counter and people will ask, they'll reach out and they'll touch them. The ones that get all of the attention, the ones that everybody wants to know, how in the world did I do that and yada yada, they're the ones that I've gone ahead and done the wax step to. Wax just adds a luster and a quality feel. So if you're trying to elevate any of your projects, even for craft shows, I would say absolutely go this extra step, because the higher the quality, the perceived value increases. That is a cheap application. Takes a little bit of time, a little elbow grease, no money hardly. This has lasted me, I don't know how, this is a price tag from my shop from 10 years ago. So I've had this for 10 years and I'm halfway gone. So it lasts and lasts and lasts. And it doesn't go bad, it doesn't dry up. So, all right, our very first step that we're going to do with our eggs, we're going to get them secured in the craft blade. Make sure they're dry. I did mine a couple days ago, so I know they're dry. But you want to start putting on all of your lines and your bands and things like that, or the areas that you're going to paint. So the very first thing you're going to need is you're going to need a marking device, the best tool, and I honestly wouldn't waste your time with just about anything else. The soapstone is going to be too dull. Even if you sharpen it, it'll be pointy for a second. You'll have to sharpen it the entire time. One of these leaded pencils, this is a Ghostwriter, it's got a ceramic lead. I can mark on here with the lead, and I can take it off with spit or varnish or water or an eraser, whatever erasing device I want. So you need something that you can get off of it later, because everything has got to be sketched. You can't trace this on, there's no graphite, you can't lay a pattern on there. It's going to be a sketch moment. Share. I'm going to get this in there evenly. I'm going to have to loosen it up. I'm always like to tighten it too tight, Queen. I keep tightening the knob tight, and I know I'm doing it, and I still do it anyway. The way that I tell whether or not I've got it in there evenly is I spin it and look to see if the egg spins evenly. You'll know when you see it out of whack. Okay, so make sure. If it's not in there evenly, then your bands all kind of go wonky. You don't want them wonky. All right, so with this very first one, what I want to do is I want to have a low band right down here. Locking my hand and placing it on here, I'm locking my hand. All right, then I'm going to make a next band up so that I can fill that with little dots and things like that. The key is not to put too hard of pressure on the, see, that just lines up perfectly. It's fantastic. Okay, the key is not to put too much pressure on your pencil hand, and just let it kind of rest as it goes around so you're not stopping it. And then about the middle, I want to go ahead, the middle of the fat part. I'm going to go ahead and make a line here. Okay, I'm off just a little bit. Now go up here, make sure you're resting and you've got a comfortable spot. If you're not comfortable, then you'll wiggle, and if you wiggle, then you won't have it lined up right. Alright, so I want to go, and actually, you know what I'm going to do is go okay, we'll go here. It's about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, right on the money. I'll flip it around. Another band up here. I don't have the same ability to make a graph like I have with the lace eggs, so you're going to have to guesstimate on this one just a little bit more. I'll try to do a cross-section drawing that shows like a real 3.5 inch egg so you can see the sizes. Now on the top, I'm not going to be able to do this because obviously I've got this tucked in, but you know, I've got an idea. Hang on a second. Alright, here's my little ring that I have that I sealed while on the camera. Now if I get some glue or some tack it over and over, I think I'll tack it over because then it'll be temporary. So if I get some tack it, I've got eggs rolling everywhere. And I roll some tack it on, or guess what else I can do? I can tap some on. Tack it will come out, for those of you, I've had lots and lots of questions. We've sold, I can't tell you how many hundreds of bottles of this tack it over and over. It's brilliant. I asked the manufacturers when I went to the California show how you get the stuff off. And they said good luck. But they said try acetone. And so for your stencils, when you put it on stencils, I went ahead and I took my stencil and I tried it, and acetone does take it off. And on our stencil material that we use, it doesn't ruin the stencil, and it does take the tacket off. But it wasn't easy, but it does definitely work. So if you have to get it off, then acetone or fingernail polish is the way to go. Goof off also works, but goof off, the professional level of goof off, is very very nasty smelling, and that seems to me that it's not a good thing to be breathing in and out. So I'm going to put 2 coats of tack it on there so it's real rubbery tacky. Not rubbery, but you know, real tacky. Nice and thick. There. Now I'll go wash this out right away, and it will wash out just fine as long as I do it right away. And if you ever get it on your hands and you can't get it off, then it's olive oil or an oil will help you with that. Now while I'm waiting, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm hesitating to show every tracing line step on these because I think that's going to be a waste of time. So I'm definitely going to give you the pattern front face so that you can see. You see how to make the lines. So you'll want to band all of your ornaments. Sorry, I'm so used to painting lace on ornaments. So you'll want to band all of your Easter eggs. All right, now I'm getting into a different kind of technique. I want to make a series of drip drops coming down here. So I'm making my lines, trying to see how many will fit nice and evenly. And I estimated I made my cross lines, and then I made my, and then from there I'll go in the middle and split the difference. You can sketch all over these because you've got your, be careful about erasing your lines. So you might not want to go too far ahead because then your lines will go away. So I want to make these little drips, get those drawn out. I could get rid of holding this in my hand, and so I can hold it top and bottom, which will help me not erase my lines. Like I can already see that they are erasing. I could also put it back in the vise and do it that way. I just happen to have it in my hand, and I was just wanting to hold it. They have such an awesome feel. Okay, so get those on there. And then we'll probably go ahead and add something drippy, like cascading dots or something like that. Okay, this is going to be so much fun. You guys are going to love this. I have no idea what I'm doing up there, though. There is a How to Design Your Own Lace DVD. There's also how to paint lace ornaments. There's sets. You can get all the tools you need for lace painting. We have a couple of the How to Paint Lace books left in the sets. Those are the ones that are going on Amazon for like $211, so you can still get it in the set, and it's like getting all the lace painting stuff for free, and you get the book that's valued highly on Amazon. So that's a good value. We have probably enough to serve everybody that would be interested this weekend. Let's see, so I'll figure this off camera. All right, my Tack It Over and Over is dry and clear. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to cut the mat exactly the same size as this, and I thought it would be easier with the thing on. So I'm going to stick this on, this is my glass palette that I've changed into, I have a glass palette without Tack It Over and Over, but this has got Tack It Over and Over on it. So when I want to cut my rock lawn or any other stuff without it slipping and sliding around, and without it cutting through cardboard and things like that, I'm going to stick that right on there. And it'll hold that in place. It'll hold it in place in theory. Okay, so on metal, on slightly used, tack it over and over. Not so good. That's funny. Okay, but it will help me cut. So what I'll do is I'll take my rubberized mat. There's a smooth side and a bumpy side. I'll take the smooth side and I'll set it down on there. And now that's stuck to my disc. Okay, put my disc down there. I guess I probably could have fit two. This is our Cutter Bee X-Acto knife kind of thing. I know X-Acto knife is a brand name. But this retracts. Okay, the way that you use this is you push the button down and it retracts. And if you push it out too far, it'll get that button stuck in there, and that's what I just did. Okay, and then you can cut with this. Okay, that's stuck on there. Cuts really, really, really easily. So I'm going to cut around my little circle. The sticky mat is the way to go. I use this for the Toll TV project, and I've used it for a few other things, and I'm not getting any, I'm not even using pressure here. This is a tool. This is something you have to have for your painting bag. I don't care if you ever want to cut a piece of rock lawn or not. It is just handy, stinking dandy. All right. So I'll take that away. Look. And we'll lift that up if we can get it released. Yeah. Okay, so this stuff likes to stick to that stuff really well. Come on off of there. Yeah, there we go. So I've got a perfectly encased little little deal, and then I can pull this off of here, okay, and I can remove it if I want to. What I'm hoping this will do for me, what I know this will do for me is I slice myself with the, there. Put that away before I hurt myself. What I'm hoping that this will do for me, besides being able to put a wine glass in here, is I'm hoping that it will allow me to have a little bit less, have the egg disappear in there a little bit less. Yeah, see, so that's got a lot more showing. Get that in there. All right, so it doesn't go in as much. Then I can take, and I'm going to have to do this a little bit backwards, I can take this and I can mark. I didn't get it in there straight. Okay, so this only works if you, I had it made exactly the size of the, Lazy Susan, like just with a little bit of room to spare. So when you get it on there, it's got to be on there so that it all, there we go. It's got to be on there so that you have, that you can turn the wheel. Okay, it just catches just a little. Okay, I'm good. So now we'll go find where we left off. There we go. And then I can make my other bands. There's my catching spot, and I went off my track. Okay, let me go grab a wine glass. I'll show you. Okay, I'll take this egg out. Hurrah. Okay, now the wine glass, see, so now I can put any kind of a container, a vase, a container, anything that has a hole, a big hole at the top. Okay, I gotta get it in there straight. Somebody can't do straight very well. There we go. Okay, so anything like this where you need to have it supported across the top. Now it's also got a padded edge. It's got a hole in the middle, so we can do what we just did with the egg, and we can spin it around. And that's foil right on my wine glass. You can do that. Hand washing afterwards. I decided I couldn't resist doing the brambly roses on this yellow egg. I think that it's just going to be so charming. So I'm going to go, and it's the same exact thing that you've been doing. And that's a little bit dark. Let's lighten that up a little bit. A lot of water. And let's go ahead and just lighten it the old-fashioned way with a little bit of white. Just a little bit too bold. We might have to taint everything with that. Show you a trick. So I got that on there. It's a little too dark. And if I can find my tools. Ha, that's because they're already out. So I put that on, I just spit on it, and I can't get it off. Okay, so I'll go in, I'll wet my triple thread eraser, and it's just got a little drop of water on the end, and then I can erase that off with water and the eraser on it. This works with fresh paint only. If I use it on dry paint, it won't take anything off. And if I use it dry, it won't do anything either. And it doesn't take the yellow paint off. So now I can erase my wet paint mistake. Works great if you're doing faces or something. You get that wonky little eyes or something like that. Okay, so we're going to do little thin vines. So everything has to get a little bit finer when you're doing little stuff. Okay. A little bit jerky, a little bit actiony. I notice my pinky finger is out over here. This is making my hand steady. You can't paint with your hand just roaming around freehand. You've got to anchor it somehow. That is excellent knowledge for any of you that didn't know that. That is key to painting. You've got to anchor your hand. We'll get our little, see our tiniest little stroke filbert. Who's going to make those really cute little leaves. I think we'll use celery for our leaves. The celery is going to be nice and light. See how dark this comes up? Oh, that'll be nice. A little water and just little bits of little leaves. Really cute little dainty details. We want to read our egg. Really, this should all be freehand. Read your egg to see where you need strokes to go. Don't do them where mine are. Do them where yours needs it, because your vine will never look exactly like my vine. Even if you painted right on my lines, you're going to have a different pressure. You're going to have a different attitude in the day. You can get close, but vines especially is one of those things that. All right, I'll repeat on the other side. We'll base our rose buds. Pink, I think we need pink plus a little bit of white. So in this case, white is being our toning color. White is a color that is going to be bringing our project together. I'm going to make that a little bigger, a couple sizes. Vary how many you have, so maybe I'll have one, and so bigger, littler, and maybe I'll have like a couple little 3 together. When you put a toning color in all the colors, they call that like a mother color. When one color is in everything, that's a mother color. And the mother color, I believe, should also be in like the background and stuff like that too. So in this case, it's not a mother color, but it is a common toning color. All right, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use a slightly different rose technique, because I don't want to do a stroke rose this little and have it be, I don't know, I'm just going to do this a slightly different way. So we'll go into our raspberry color, and we'll give a little bit, we'll give a shadow to the bottom, and then a little throat. And make sure everybody turns a different way. Shadow to the bottom and a little throat. In this particular technique, I am using the technique of not setting my entire brush down in every case. So I'm just using the loaded toe to do what I need to do. This case, I put half of my brush down. If I had a bigger surface, I'd put more. I'm reading each rose to see which way it seems like it needs to point. So when you're doing this, sometimes you have to put your whole brush down, and sometimes you don't have to. Darker there. But I'm doing these microscopic little rose buds, and I'm doing them all with the same brush. So I'm doing big ones and little ones by just changing how much of my brush I'm putting down on the surface. All right, look how cute. Those look so darling. Okay, and I'm trying to debate. I don't even know that I want any highlight on these. Maybe we'll switch to our filbert. We'll side load into some dry warm white. Let's see, let me get you a little bit closer so you can see this. I'm feeling like I'm needing to get my artist buddy out right here. And let's give, okay, so let me get a big one. I'm going to change your direction depending on which way you're going. So here, I'm going to just take that little bit of my edge and just give it just that little bit of an accent here. Just a little bit, that's almost too much. Just touch, 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 touch. And then just the edge of the brush if need be. It could just be that white is too white. Let's just give it white plus the French mauve. See if that helps. I like the white. Just on the tippy tip edge of your brush and just wiping that in there. Little kind of stroke. Makes it just have a little bit of something going on. Now my brush got dry. I like the stroke, but it was definitely not intentional. So you rinse it out, you start back over again. Remember, we had a really dry brush when we started that, so it makes perfect sense that it would be too dry. All right. Okay, now that I have my rosebuds done, I'm going to get into Camel, whoops, and a very wet-handled brush. And I'm going to float on my lines. Inside my lines, not on my roses. A little bit more water. If your brush is not woken up, then you're not going to float pretty. And that's what was just happening to me. I'm not getting anything off my brush because my brush was half dry. You can kind of back it off a little bit if you think it's too heavy. Okay. Definitely wanting my water to be a bit balanced. There we go. This would be a fantastic time for my mister. Let's see if I have any water left in here. I'll have to reload. Yeah. I'm wanting to just have just that little bit extra to pick up. There we go. Oh, awesome. Okay, so then I'll come up and I'll repeat on all the sides. Alright, I wanted to put an oval right in the middle of this, and so I put my paint bottle up there and just traced the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is just scooch down from the edges to oval it up. And point it at the top to make my oval. And then once again, I've got lots of erasing I can do. Alright, this part right here, what we're going to do is we're going to make some cross hatching. I can find my lovely Raphael. I have now got gold leaf on my Raphael brush. That's not good. Alright, we want to bring our white out a little bit here. Okay, bring our white into our little puddle of paint. Make it nice and not too thin or it won't show. Put you in a good camera position here. Good gravy. So then what we'll do is we'll just go straight across one direction and evenly go across. In this case, I'm pulling my brush towards me. I'm not worried about going from one side to the other. I'm going to change directions, however, to get the other side. I'm pulling towards myself. I have my Q-tip out and ready for boo-boos. Almost. And now we'll do them crossed over. And I need to turn. Cross over in another direction. Make sure you keep those spaces even. They're much prettier when they're even. Notice I'm leaning on my piece with my pinky. And so I'm keeping a steady hand. There's our cross hatching. Now right in the middle of this, I'm going to want a little rose. So I'm going to make my little green, celery green, make a little stem. You know, we probably ought to shade this. We do that, let's shade. painting it even. My lines may not be even, but I'm going to go ahead and correct with my paint. Amazing how that just gives that some definition. You could have these going all the way connected around. We may do that. And I think we'll start with our brown for our stem. Give it a little bit of weight, a little bit of a cut bottom. Oh, lost it. And then we'll leaf it. And then we'll rosebud it. Same technique as the other buds. And we'll probably have to let's give it a little bit more ovalness to that. I could shade with this brush too. I think I have to let that dry though. Shade. And then use our little brush and get our white paint. Now this one I'll take the care and the time to put a little bit of a top on that. And take a little bit more time with the strokes that I make. It just gives it a little bit more finished look. Okay, now I want to band these bands of the eggs with the green, I think. We'll see, I think maybe green plus white. Let's see how dark that turns out. And now the truth comes, the moment of truth. Let's see how steady I can be, right? And I'm going to need something else to set my hand on. Okay, ta-da, ta-da, you've got your egg stands. They stack up and make a great stand. So I'm going to line, my steady line, I'm going to turn and line. That's too white. So I'm going to go with the regular full force green. See how that just changed colors on there? I don't even like that at all. Let's just spit on the Q-tip and get it off of there. Okay, start over. You have to have the right amount of distance to reach out with your brush. Get your close-up glasses on. And don't try to go forever. Like, allow yourself to, just to go a short distance. Don't put your brush, there's a way to put your brush down. If you stab at your brush and you plunk it down, you're going to have a big start mark right there. You reach above and you skim it down and you skim it off. That's how you set your brush down when you're trying to make a stroke that fades in. So you're not setting it down, you're not worrying about things. Straight is good. Fix it with Q-tips as you go around. Whoop. A little tack it over and over on these might not be remiss either. Alright, there's my first line. Now we're going to put hash marks and things like that on there, so I think that we're good. Now I'll go around and do all my other lines that way as well. Alright, watch what I can do. This is cool. Okay, on the close one, I don't think I can get by with it up here, but on the close one, I can anchor my hand, keeping my eye and my brush on the line, and when it starts moving, like right here it's getting a little bit offline, I can make my line by turning the craft lathe. And I can make my line wonky by turning the craft lathe. Just meet the two of those together. It's a little bit jerky, but it doesn't seem to be doing that to my brush. Yeah, that's a nice even line. I don't want this line thick. I do want this line thick. So this one I'll do the other way. But yeah, that's neat. All right, now I'm going to take and I'm going to encase my oval with a couple of strokes. I'm going to do green. Drop down a little bit. Green. Okay, and I'll do the same on the other side, one hopes. Okay, other sides are always, people are always one-sided or the other. And I've got to get it at a right angle. Keep it about even. You want them to lead to the same spot. Very pretty. I think we'll finish that with a dot. We'll do a dip dot. Dip dots can only happen with fresh paint, so be careful of that. If your paint isn't fresh, you will not make a pretty dip dot. We'll have all kinds of squidgy things going on. Alright, a neat thing with this, lost my glasses, neat thing with this craft lathe, there's these little hash marks right here. And thank you to the lady who emailed me about this. I didn't realize that that's what these were for until I just saw them staring at me. They're opposites of each other. So each of these little hash lines that are raised are opposites. So when I need to make like my cross section, it is pre-done for me. I don't have to worry about measuring it or getting it wonky. So I want to line this up directly with the middle of my rows, so I can take that, and that's about right. I'm going to flip it around to the other side, and I want to repeat the entire process over here. Okay, we'll make that goes almost all the way to the top and the bottom, so we'll do the same kind of thing. And repeat it. And we're going to repeat it one more time, and I'm assuming, hey, cool, look at that. They got it cross-sectioned. That's sweet. Okay, so then, once again, I'm going to go ahead and mark it just so that you can see it. That's going to tell me exactly where my quarter is, if you will. So I can do the same thing here. Center that. And I'll know that they're in the quarter positions. And then I can flip it over and the same thing goes on right here. Like, I didn't even know that did that. When you guys email me, I really appreciate it because I don't know stuff and I have to like learn everything by scratch. So when you guys help me out, then I get to pass it on to everybody. Okay, we want to have 3 eggs that are, or ovals that are eggish in shape. Okay, and that's what we'll do. We'll just repeat those patterns. Okay, I've got my pattern started on here, and you may not be able to see it, but I'm going to use, I've sketched it on with the white ceramic lead. Now I've got a heart with a little heart, with a big heart, with a little heart, with a big heart, with a little heart. So I'm going to use these little hash mark things again to see where I end up. Like that's right here. Will that go back up high enough and far enough? And that's about, so I can use this, look what I can do. I can do my rose line, I mean my heart line. So I'm going to put a very faint line here, which I'm going to take off, and I totally, did I screw that up? Totally screwed that up. Am I in straight? Got to be in straight or it doesn't work. And hold your hand steady. Yeah, there we go. I must have wonked at the end. Okay, so now I know that that's what the line where my hearts go, and I can put another line where this top rising thing is. Okay, so I know I can go very softly line to estimate to give myself a place to hit. Okay, so we're going to go down here to this line, and I want this to go up to here and come out like that. So now what I want is I want this to be in the middle, and I think I'm over just a little bit. So to get that pattern on there straight, I need to put my main elements on and then go in between them. Okay. And we'll do the same thing over here. We know that that's going to be my quarter mark, and that's going to be straight down through. And I'm going to want this to come out nice and even. And then I'll know that I'm doing the same thing here. Ooh, that was a little bit wide. Okay, now I'll bring this in and bring it up a little bit lower. Same thing here, this in, bring it up a little bit lower. Okay, there, now I've got a nice, whoops, one more missing. Nice and graceful, that's what I was looking for. Now these are a mirror of these. Okay, so we'll bring this up, bring it down. Bring it up, bring it down. Totally got that one off. The triple threat eraser is your friend when you're doing this kind of stuff, because it makes it like you didn't make a mistake at all. Okay, I'm just going to keep repeating those. Now to get my hearts in the middle, I've gone ahead and I made my hearts, and the hearts are funny. They all have, like, your left side and your right side are never going to match. So just get over it, put some strokes on there to make them even, and you'll be much happier than if you futz with them too long. These are going to be small. I want to make sure those lines flow into each other. So almost like a figure 8. And that one's way off, so I will go back and I will make it better. It's like they're little love knots or something like that. Almost Celtic. The one flows into the other. Make it higher. Okay. Now we've got our hearts on there. We've got our repeating border down here. And I think we'll do dots or something like that. Up. And so now we'll get into some white paint. And we want to use our Raphael. These are needing to be maybe a little bit thicker lines than you might want. Hoping this warm white shows up okay on the screen. I'm using a number 3 Raph. If you want to go smaller, then you'll get thinner and finer lines just by the size of the brush. I'm working my paint. Still pointy. This thing just is amazing. All right. Now what I found when I was doing this egg right here is I found I could do my bands and my borders by just spinning the wheel if I set it in my lap, because I have just enough cushiness to make it hold and everything. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to systematically I'm going to make my lines from up top here. I can't make this whole arched line, but I know I'm going to get thicker through here, so I'm going to make it thicker here, getting down to skinny. Thicker here, getting down to skinny. So I want that multi-sized kind of technique. Thicker here, lifting up. Okay, then to finish it, I'm going to come out over here on point and thicker going around the top. There we go. Q-tip to the rescue. Okay, I did have to go and get my Snow White out. And I have to get our paint ready. Gonna repeat over the tops of these. Okay, then we're just gonna line all your details with white. I'm gonna make my strokes down here. With my Raphael. Rum. Okay, I've got all my strokes made. Now I'm going to use the Easy Dot tool, which is fantastic. Never ever will you have to search for the right size, I was going to say brush, but if all of your brushes are in your brush basin with the handle ends down, you're never going to know by looking at the top how fat the end is going to be. So this gives you from sharp, pointy, whoops, and they number them, so you can say number 1 point or all the way up to, you know, this really fat bottoms. So we're going to listen to motorcycles. I'm happy it's spring day. We're going to make some drip dots. So I'm using a number 4, and I'm going to drip these down and almost in straight. Fresh paint, remember, you can't make drip dots if they're not fresh paint. Sometimes you have to blot the first one, so make your first dot and then go blot to get the right amount of change. Dots stay wet a really, really long time, so you want to make sure that you stay out of them. Okay, we want big dots on the ends of all of our ending places, if you will. So we'll put big dot there, big dot there. If you want them exactly the same, you need to wipe your end of your dotting tool off each time you do a dot. I'm not a dot purist, so I don't mind if they change sizes a little bit. In fact, I'd probably say I'm not a purist in most ways. Okay, those guys are dotted. And I think we'll go ahead and do dots inside these bands right here. So we want to go, now this one, I probably will wipe each of these. Oh, and I just lied. I probably will wipe them every couple of times. I'm estimating the middle, and I'm putting a dot underneath the elements. The only thing you want to be careful when we get into the bigger dots is dripping. You don't want dripping. Okay, so now I'm going and I'm putting them under the elements, and then I'm going and centering them, which I think will make them nice and evener. Evener is a good word to use. I'm going to fill this middle band with cross-hatching, being careful not to put my hands in the dots. I think it's enough in the middle. You might have to adjust the angles. I think it's enough in the middle. I did this with the ornament project for the magazine, and because of the concaveness of the project, yeah, the angles are going to change a little bit. So what we need to do is go back in and just keep constantly adjusting the angle. When you cross over them, it changes the look. And it cleans them up a little bit, so you won't worry about it, but you do need to be aware. Like, look at the angle that you're making on one and then split the difference. Kind of fan it out. And then I'm fanning the wrong direction, I think. Just keep adjusting. You want to take the tiny little tool, and the other thing I love about this is you can pinch it right here in the middle, and it makes it very comfortable to hit the mark that you're trying to hit. And we'll just dot all of the cross-hatching points where they come together. It's a pretty simple ornament, but how pretty for you know, a little granddaughter, or you know, you could make it in baby blues, baby pinks for a girl or a boy. You know, I've got all kinds of things in mind. Eggs are not just for Easter, and eggs are all the time. You know, you can, I'm going to put a nice coat of kind of glossy varnish on this, and it's just going to look so elegant. It can go in that basket, it can go on a shelf. Alright, when my dots are dry, I'm going to use triple thick brush on varnish. And I'm going to use an oval glaze brush. I'm going to work very quickly. I'm going to try to end where my lines end. That way, if I do that, then I can turn this in the lathe when it dries and go to the other line, and it'll be okay. This is super duper shiny varnish. Dries really fast. 3 times the normal thickness, if I can talk. The only thing I'm concerned about is I'm putting this on a round object. This may be a nightmare, but we'll learn together, right? We'll even it out as I go. It'll level somewhat. Okay. Now I'm going to babysit this, so I'll have this. You know, this would be a great thing to do while you're talking on the phone. You know, you get off, you're sitting there talking on the phone, you got nothing better to do than blow your hot air all over this ornament and make sure it doesn't drip. But don't, you know, brush it on and not know if it's going to drip and drag, and leave it. I'm dipping into the middle. I'm not scraping off on the edges. The only thing I'm not going to like here is meeting the 2 sides. You got to work kind of quick. Go over here. You know how varnish pulls, so we don't want it pulling where they meet. You almost could work from the 2 sides going out to prevent that. Have a nice eggy kind of look. I'm going to glitter over after I get done getting this dry. I'll show you how that works. Okay, so I'm looking for dripping. Can't play around in this too much. It's got a real pretty look to it, doesn't it? And it's not acting like it's going to really drip. It's acting like it might heave a little because I've got it on there kind of. I've placed it really thickly and very, you only need 1 coat, which is kind of nice. Alright, so now I'll just babysit it while it dries. Keep flipping my craft lathe around. Cover your varnish. Don't get the goobers inside of it. Spray would probably be good too. Just give it a little rotate while you're doing other things. Alright, I'm really happy to report that this has not been a pain in the butt at all. I'm almost dry. Then I'll rotate the egg, and I think it'll be a shoo-in to go ahead and pop that over there. But very neat product. It looks like a glass egg. I don't think I am going to glitter on top of it. I think that just looks so elegant like that. Next we're going to get started on our pink egg. We're going to use metallic on this. And we'll see. Like, this may be a disaster. We'll see. You know, we're just trying stuff. Eggs are different than ornaments because eggs, I haven't used my metallic in a long time, so eggs are different than ornaments because they have to have a different personality to them. And, you know, you learn the first time that you ever paint black lace on a red ornament that you're going to look like the little whorehouse in Texas, you know. So you make sure that you don't ever do that again. You think it's a good idea at the time, and then you do it, and it's not such a great idea. Anyway, so we're going to use, I'm going to try to use the metallic, and I'm going to do a little bit of leafing on this egg as well. Get you on camera here, sorry. And I'm not certain if I'm going to put jewels or what I'm going to do here. I've got some circles there, and we'll see what I end up doing. But for right now, I'm just going to line my details and see where I get. So let's talk about how gold doesn't look good on French mauve. Okay, gold does not look good on French mauve, and I ran my pinky through a thing. I am going to just stipple over what I've got. Hopefully they're dry enough that I don't make a big mess. And get that little goober off of there. I'm just stippling over. My pattern lines are going to kind of stay. I'm not going to care. I'm going to switch my colors. So I'll just redot right where I dotted before, and my dot lines won't matter. You could sand if you made a mistake, but this covers up really well. I'm actually impressed. So if you have, you know, big mistakes, just re-stipple your paint color and be good to go. I think we've talked about this here, everybody giving me, of course, their opinions. The opinion is that this color pink is not maybe the prettiest color pink. But I think, like, I like it with the others, and it's in our palette, so I'm liking it as an egg color. I'm not liking it as a color with gold, and it's going to need to be, something that I put on it is going to need to be a little fresher. So let this dry, and then I'll get out a fresher color, and we'll see if we can't freshen it up, because the gold was terrible. Alright, the report on the triple thick varnish. It's dry. It's not dry enough for me to put in the craft lathe the other way, but it is dry and it is gorgeous. That is a wonderful varnish. I didn't leave me a bunch of ribbles. I've got one here. Looks like I just kind of screwed up my application. So I'm going to pop this puppy out of here. Helps if you use the right end. And I want to see, while I've got you here and we're doing the project, I want to see if we can get these two sides, because we have to secure it somehow. I want to see if we can make them meet. That's the tricky stuff. Okay, so I'm going to go right to that line. I wonder, ooh, yeah, no. I'm just wondering if it's going to be all or nothing. We may have to spray these. Oh, there we go. Brush real thin next to your border and bring it on into it. There we go. As futzy as varnish can be, this isn't futzing as much as I thought it would. I really thought I was going to have some interesting issues with it, and it's not being bad. Okay, I'm going to try mixing in a touch of drying time extender into my brush. And just soup it up where they join. Yeah. Give it, oops, ah! Get just a little bit of moisture and even everything out. Yeah, that's much better. Okay. All right, that evens everything out nicely. So pre-slick with a thin coat a drying time extender where you want the two edges to meet. And Bob should be your uncle right there, huh? Yeah, I think that's good. All right, I'm going to let it dry. See how we turn out. That looks wonderful. All right, on the finish. I think I got a fairly even little bit of stuff going on, but I do see some ripplies, and I think if you're a perfectionist, you're not going to be a fan of this. So if you are a perfectionist and you don't want the thick, you know what I mean, I think go ahead and brush on several coats of gloss. That'll go on thinner, it'll go on more even, it'll dry evenly, and that might be a better way for you to go if you need it absolutely perfect. But I'm really liking this finish. I think I can see lots and lots of uses for it. Just maybe it's a little bit harder and more challenging on the oval egg. All right, let's see if I can get you on camera. Got things going all over. Okay, so this is, I redotted, I relined, I redid some stuff. Same things that we've been doing on all the others. Got some stroke work going in the middles. And just looking for some balance. Lace is all about repeating patterns. And I think got a good repeating pattern here, so just continue to line and dot, and that'll finish this one up. All right, I'm adding just a little bit of raspberry loading, shading. Just gives it a little bit more something going on. Do the same on this side. You would normally do your dots last. I'm building a design, so I'm trying to see what needs to happen as I go along.